in 2027.
The answer from European capitals has been as resounding as it is clear. We are in an era of rearmament to respond to the short-term urgency to act and to support Ukraine, but also to address the long-term need to take on more responsibility for our own European security.
On Saturday, we also agreed a new £2.2 billion loan for Ukraine, backed not by the British taxpayer, but by the profits from frozen Russian assets. It is my pleasure to bring from His Majesty the King a letter. He sent his best wishes and his regards, of course, but he also asked me to bear this letter and bring it to you. So can I present the letter from the King to you?
Thank you very much. Am I supposed to read it right now?
Yeah, please do.
I will do.
I've got to tell him what your reaction is, so I need to know. I need to know.
He is a great gentleman. A great, great gentleman. He said he thinks the war's going to go on for a long time, and he better not be right. Well, I just think he should be more appreciative, because this country has stuck with them through thick and thin. We've given them much more than Europe, and Europe should have given more than us, because as you know, that's right there, that's the border.
What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you
Mr.
are not
President, Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media.
You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome to Morning Glory. It's 3 minutes past 6 and it's Bank Holiday Monday, ladies and gentlemen. Who knew? Monday the 25th of August, perhaps the last final weekend of August, actually. We'll be bringing you loads and loads of news because it's very busy this morning. Rafe Hardelmanku has been kind enough to come in, taking a break from the Notting Hill Carnival with that shirt that he's got on, obviously. We'll be talking about the Notting Hill Carnival. They seem to have decided there's a new plan in place. We'll just arrest people before it happens, and then that way, hopefully, things will all go pretty well. Rafe's going to fill us in on all of that. Coming up also, we'll be talking about Prince Andrew. He's made his way onto the front pages once again. Virginia's revenge is what it says on the front page of The Sun. Prince Andrew's sex abuse accuser Virginia Giuffre is taking revenge from beyond the grave in a bombshell memoir. It's going to be published in October. It's going to talk about how she was trafficked as a teenager. Extraordinary stuff. That's on the front page of the Mail as well. Lots of other stories, though. The I newspaper goes with the Migrant hotel thing. Channel Migrants are first for fast-track asylum hearings. Apparently Yvette Cooper is going to move to close the hotels. Well, good luck with that, Yvette. Nobody knows where or when that's going to happen. And at the weekend, there was more protests going on outside many of those hotels where people are still very, very upset and fed up about the news that more and more people are coming over the channel. We're told the weather is turning clement today, so more than likely, I'm looking out at a beautiful sunrise, by the way, more than likely, more and more hundreds and possibly thousands of migrants will be back in to the country before the end of this week. Front page of the Times, pressure grows for the Prime Minister to get a grip on asylum claims. Sir Keir Starmer's facing calls from Labour grandees and ministers to take a more radical approach to the crisis amid mounting public concern about the government's handling of the issue. Apparently a YouGov poll for the Times says 71% of voters believe the Prime Minister is making a complete dog's breakfast of it. And of course he is. Lord Blunkett's come out and said basically we should be suspending our membership of the ECHR and the UN Refugee Convention to help kick out more and more of these migrants. moment. So it's all going on. Also, of course, over the weekend, it was revealed that Britain may well be heading for a bailout from the IMF, which is what I've been saying is going to happen since about last August. It looks as though Rachel Reeves has finally run out of money, doesn't know what to do, so she'll have to go cap in hand, begging, with the old begging bowl, to the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, who will have to bail out Great Britain. What a terrible, awful state of affairs. 0344 499 1000. Also, Gen Z, apparently, they're all at home working because that's what they wanted to do. Now they're all lonely. So now they want to come back to the office because they don't see anybody anymore. What an absolute shambles they are. 0344 499 1000. 5 minutes past 6. This is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. So here we are, the weekend has rolled around pretty quick. There was still the dregs of last night's doings going on this morning when I came in at about 4:45. There was lots of people still staggering about the state of drunkenness. There was a big party not far from me in south-east London in one of the big parks as well. I noticed there was plenty of litter on the streets. Ray, very good morning to you. Notting Hill Carnival today is the day it kind of kicks off generally, isn't it, the Bank Holiday Monday. But they don't seem to have had too much trouble so far, presumably because they arrested a bunch of people before it all started.
Yes, well, it's early doors still. I mean, we still have a full day to go. My friends who live in the area call it Notting Hill Carnival,
yes,
and I think
sure.
a good measure.
I'm sure.
As I always say, you know, in Florida, people board up their shops and their homes and flee their houses when there's a hurricane about to arrive. In Notting Hill, they do that when Carnival arrives.
I've got a friend who did exactly that and left London on sort of Friday morning, having boarded up his place, and he said we won't be back till Wednesday. By which time, hopefully, things will have returned to normal. What dreadful things you have to do. You know, you own a property in London, you know, one of the great cities of the world, and, you know, for one entire weekend, you can't live in it.
And then you've got the joy of being elsewhere, looking on your door cam and seeing people urinating, having carnal relations or whatever else. It's terrible.
It really is. So 140 people were arrested on day one of Nottingham, which means the numbers of people arrested have actually gone up by 40%. But they had a watch list, apparently, of more than 16,000 people.
Well, you know, it's things like Notting Hill Carnival that make me think maybe we do need to have facial recognition technology, actually.
And that's what they're using, isn't it?
But I looked into a couple of years ago into how many crimes are committed at Notting Hill compared to other similar events.
Yeah.
I looked at the Platinum Jubilee, right, which is over the same weekend, same sort of weekend, same number of people. Notting Hill Carnival is 35 times more dangerous and violent.
Yeah.
You know, over 350 arrests that year, compared to 10 at the Platinum Jubilee.
I know.
I mean, there's no comparison.
So they arrested 100 before it started and arrested 140 on day one. And they said that they only reported, and that's their words, not mine, only reported 15 assaults on police officers. Well, that's quite a lot.
Last year, I don't know if people realise this, last year more police were assaulted and injured at the Notting Hill Carnival than in the Southport protests.
Yeah.
And yet you had all the politicians decrying and deriding the Southport protests, yet they consistently downplay and ignore the violence at the Notting Hill Festival. Yeah. I think it's had its day. It needs to be taken off London streets altogether. Put it in Hyde Park, that's quite close to Notting Hill.
Everybody says that that's a much better idea.
But even better, bring it back to the community. Put it in Brixton and Burgess Park, take it to Hackney and Victoria Park there, have it ticketed, people pay money to go in, security fences around there, metal detectors, drug searchers, sniffer dogs, and have a safe environment.
Because one day there will be a bad sort of crushing accident, because when you see the amount of people that are in the streets, and it's almost like they're all being kettled because there's too many of them for the space, basically.
The police are genuinely fearful of a mass casualty event due to that very issue. Yeah. And look, the fact is, if any other event had this number of stabbings, murders, sexual assaults, violence against police, and the potential for overcrowding, it would be cancelled in a minute.
It wouldn't be organised on an annual basis, would it? I mean, you wouldn't go, let's do it again next year. Great. Have a look at this. This is Met Commander Charmaine Brenier telling us how great the Notting Hill Carnival is.
But we're there to make sure that we tackle serious violence, and obviously there are concerns around crowd safety. Our role there is going to make sure that we intervene for anyone who's coming to commit crime. It's going to be to protect those from serious violence, such as knife crime and violence against women and girls, and also to support the organisers into managing crowd safety. So last year there were 8 stabbings, and unfortunately and tragically 2 people were murdered. That is absolutely at the forefront of our minds as we enter Carnival this year. Our focus remains on tackling serious violence and taking lives off the streets so that we can deliver a safe and secure carnival.
So it's not a great advert for the Carnival this year, is it? So unfortunately, two people were murdered, a load of people were stabbed, the police were beaten up. Where can I get my tickets?
My memory's not that great anymore. I'm pretty sure we didn't get that message during the coronation.
No.
If you're in the Mall and you get sexually assaulted, please go here.
Yes.
You might get stabbed, you know.
Yeah. It is extraordinary, isn't it? And of course, the politically correct of this world say, oh, well, you're just having a go because you're racist, you know, because it's a black thing. Well, it doesn't really matter whether you think it's a black thing or not. It's a dangerous thing, regardless of who's going to it.
Look, it's two-tier policing in another form, right? Because this wouldn't be allowed.
7,000 cops, right?
7,000. It's a red letter day for all criminals in East London, and North London and South London, because they could act with impunity, knowing nothing's going to happen. But the fact is, if a St George's Day parade had this much violence attached to it, or a sporting fixture, in fact, last July when you had the European Championships, they had an exclusion zone in central London to avoid fans drinking and getting into trouble.
Yes.
But when it comes to Notting Hill Carnival, I'm afraid it's become a sort of a sacred festival in the Church of Diversity.
Yes, of course.
And it's a holy weekend, and so of course it's beyond. You can't touch the thing.
No.
We need to stop this ridiculous cult-like reverence.
I said on Samara Gill did her first show on Friday night, and I went on there and said, you know, the thing about the Notting Hill Carnival is just not a British event. It's not British. You should have seen the outcry on social media. You know, absolutely disgraceful, racist. How dare you say such a thing? And then of course you get all the usual suspects saying, actually it was the British who started it in Jamaica, and you go, all right, okay, now you're starting to stretch incredulity slightly. But the point is that it doesn't matter who is organising it, it doesn't matter what you want to call it, it's not safe. Simple.
It is the most dangerous annual event in Britain. I think it's probably the most dangerous annual event in Europe.
Yeah,
I think, you know,
probably is.
Yeah.
But especially the only one that's actually properly managed and organised and actually, you know, sort of advertised as if it's a great thing every year.
And which we're paying for.
And which we're paying for. Well, Sadiq Khan found another £1 million for it this year, didn't he, in order to keep it going? Because, I mean, if you look around the papers this morning, there's all kinds of reports of various different protests against migrant hotels, which I'm sure are policed very differently in various different parts of the... I saw an amazing video from Nuneaton, I think it was, where there were loads and loads of... It looked like a couple of thousand people outside this hotel, and they're all just marching around, waving their England flags and singing Sweet Caroline. It was quite a nice thing to see. But outside the Britannia Hotel in Canary Wharf, that was going on as well. There was protests outside the Holiday Inn in Solihull in the West Midlands. There were, you know, parties and protests basically all over the country now, because Starmer is just getting it completely wrong, isn't he?
Yeah, and it takes a lot to rouse the English. The English are the most tolerant people in Europe. Yeah. But once they're roused, my God, they're roused. And I've often wondered what it would take for the English to suddenly find their voice. I'm reminded of G.K. Chesterton, for we are the people of England that have not spoken yet. Well, they finally found their voice up and down the country. And it's so heartwarming to see this display of positive patriotism.
Yes.
It's free from all of the nasty elements of extremism you may see in Europe and elsewhere.
Yeah.
And it's just people saying, you know, we've had enough. These are our communities. We want to take back control.
And it's families, by and large,
and it's elderly ladies, it's families coming out to support it.
Yeah.
And anyone, of course, you're seeing that the left now try to associate this with far-right extremism. These are just decent people saying, we don't want this on our doorstep.
Yeah. Well, the only problem comes if and when the left turn up to have a counter-demonstration where they're holding up signs saying refugees welcome. Well, that's all very well, but whenever you go and ask them if they're welcome in their own homes, they will say, oh, well, actually, I've got quite a small flat. There's not very much I can do. You know, it's the usual hypocrisy of the left because, of course, they don't want the refugees anywhere near where they live. They just want them everywhere else.
But this is actually why we're seeing this change, because there are so many migrants that need to be housed. They're finally going into not just working class areas. And so now suddenly Middle England is waking up to the fact that the people they derided as gammon are just reacting to living at the coalface of diversity every day. So actually, in a way, spreading immigrants around the country it's motivated people to actually take a stand.
Yeah, absolutely right. And an awful lot of coverage this morning. The inside pages of the Times have got, like Summer of '76, why Labour risks a repeat of the IMF bailout, March of Asylum hotels all over the place, reform calls for two-tier rights that prioritise British citizens. This comes amid other stories this morning, where apparently the hotels that are currently holding migrants are now being told that they're going to have to hold foreign criminals. They're going to have to take foreign criminals in because there simply isn't anywhere else to put them. And these might be people who have come from abroad with foreign criminal records, right, as front page piece in the Telegraph. Asylum hotel operators have been told to house foreign criminals, including arsonists. That's always a good idea, isn't it? Get a few arsonists into a hotel because there's not much danger of doing anything. Home Office documents provided to firms arranging accommodation state the facilities must, in their words, acknowledge and agree that some residents may be ex-foreign national offenders released on criminal bail.
This is an absolutely remarkable story. I mean, now we know really what's going on inside these hotels, but it's even more insane. It says that these hotels are warned that housing arsonists may lead to higher insurance premiums. Well, really, Sherlock.
Really?
That's great. Also, if you're going to be housing ex-offenders, you may need more robust furniture. I mean, this is an absolute lunacy. What are we doing here? We also find out now that it's proving hard to deport many criminals and many people because their home countries are taking up to a year to actually send over the paperwork.
Right.
Egypt, Eritrea, these sorts of places, not Eritrea, but Egypt and other places are proving extremely difficult to do this. And so whilst we're waiting for their embassies to send the paperwork, we're footing the bill.
I know.
And they're going into these hotels.
Well, this is the trouble, isn't it? Because, I mean, what Yvette Cooper was saying over the weekend is that they're trying to slimline the system by which people who, once they are denied asylum, they're kicked out of the country as opposed to kept here and going through an appeal process. And so they're saying that, we're going to try and get it right the first time. Well, that's going to mean deporting loads of people, isn't it? Except they won't do it.
No, I'm glad to see. I think tomorrow Reform are coming out with their proposals, which include the real sorts of proposals we want to hear. You arrive there, you will be arrested and deported. That's the sort of messaging that creates a deterrent, not telling people, well, there'll be a one in, one out policy, which may lead to 50 people going back a week.
Yeah, exactly right. And we know this from figures that came out last week. There's a bit in the Express today. The comfort of migrants is more important than women's safety. This is coming from Jess Gill. We know her, director of the Women's Safety Institute, saying that basically the number of asylum seekers housed in hotels rose 8% to 32,059 last year, while those claiming refugee status jumped by 14% to a record 111,000. The Express have got a chilling picture of an Albanian smuggler, right? That's him. Apparently that's how he looks. He wants to cover his face. He's basically saying on the front page, I don't believe the UK lacks the means to stop this from happening, but I think they need this flow of immigrants. And he says the small boats crisis is Labour's fault, basically. He says that he thinks Labour isn't stopping the boats because it needs a cheap workforce willing to do undesirable jobs. Well, he may well have a point. Well,
that's certainly the reason for mass immigration, where we've basically, only 1 in 20 immigrants to this country is a high-skilled, high-earner net contributor to the economy. It is because of the desire for cheap labour that we've had such unprecedented legal immigration. But in terms of illegal immigration, it's just incompetence and an unwillingness to tackle the issues in the way they need to be done. Right. It's only now, in the 11th hour, 1 minute to midnight, that we're finally seeing some robust policies being considered. This should have been done 5, 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah, totally. The Home Office, who are consistently trying to catch up with their own bad record, have put out a new video, though, so this may make you feel a little bit more at ease with how they're dealing with the problem. We showed it in a video about 3 weeks ago, and the 35,000 figure relates to people that were sent back last November. Most of them, in fact, requested to be sent back, and we know from Home Office figures from last week, only 2,330 of them had actually come on a small boat.
Yeah, well, this is right out of the Tory playbook too. Talk tough, get the headlines, seem as if you're doing something, but when you look into the details of the facts, far from the case.
Nothing at all. 51,318 have come since Starmer got in, right? 2,330 have been sent back. That, by my reckoning, leaves you with around about 49,000 still here.
Yeah, and
it's quite a big number.
A record 111,000 people applied for asylum during the first year of Labour coming to power.
Yeah.
I mean, and there's been an increase in the number of people in asylum hotels since Labour came to power as well.
Yeah.
They talk about the number having been halved.
Yeah.
That happened under the Tories, the number of hotels that were closed down. They've been going up. It's a complete shambles. There's no deterrent. We all said before it happened, smashing the gangs won't work as a deterrent. The evidence is clear. You even have former Labour Home Secretary Lord Blunkett saying Labour has lost control of this issue. You need to get rid of the European Court of Human Rights. He said, I was the first person to call for the 1951 Convention on Refugees to be scrapped. Yeah. Now you've got ex-Labour Home Secretary saying this stuff. Everything that we were saying, we were ridiculed for, we were called extremists 5 years ago. It's now become platformed and mainstream by centrist parties. Yeah. It's all far too little and far too late.
It really is. And unfortunately for Keir Starmer, front pages, and he hates this because the one thing he likes to be thinking of is that he rules by YouGov poll. And here's a YouGov poll which is as bad as it can get. 71% of voters believe the Prime Minister is handling the Asylum hotel issue badly, and that includes 56% of Labour voters. So, I mean, even his own party have had enough, right? And this is all kind of ratcheted up, hasn't it, since the High Court ruled last week that Epping, that hotel in Epping, the Bell Hotel, was now going to have to kick out all of the residents that they've got there and move them somewhere else. As far as I know, there's an appeal process going on, and so they haven't been moved yet.
And only Labour can snatch defeat from the jaws of victory, because you would have thought that the court's ruling on Epping would have taken that decision out of their hands.
Right.
The public are in support of this, so they would say, well, the courts have decided, we'll go with the courts.
Right.
That's a vote winner. Instead, they're going to be appealing the court's decision to keep these migrant hotels. Now, of course, what they should be saying is we're going to create refugee camps. That's precisely what you want to have, ex-RAF bases, instead of which, no talk about camps. The hotels are going to be closed. They're simply going to move people in next door to you in these HMOs, houses of multiple occupation, opposite your child's primary school. It's one thing to have people in a migrant hotel on a golf course on the outskirts of town. It's another when they're living right next door to you. And unfortunately, that seems to be the plan that Labour has.
Yeah, unfortunately so. Let's just check in with Yvette Cooper's Twitter account, because, of course, she did promise us that we were going to have regular updates. And once again, we don't seem to have any. That Home Office video, the new one we just showed you, was first put out on the 7th of August. So literally at the first week of this month. We're now into the 4th week of this month, and nothing's changed. There's been no update. We haven't been told what's happened to the people who were detained, who were supposed to be being returned. They obviously haven't been returned, otherwise we'd be told about it. So it's a stalemate.
Irregular migration means irregular updates, I think.
I think irregular. Well, as I keep saying, it was suggested to me that Halley's Comet is also regular. It's once every 76 years. But doesn't make it very frequent, but there we are. It's 21 minutes past 6. We've got plenty more to do. We'll talk a bit about Prince Andrew. Angela Rayner, of course, back on the front pages, because she seems to have managed to get herself a third home for 700,000 quid, somewhere down near Brighton. There she is, posing in a dinghy on the Channel, bizarrely, with somebody who is rowing. She's like the Queen of Sheba, isn't she? She's great. This is Talk. Back up.
The reality is that this country is built on the backs of those small businesses. Our entire economy is built on it. They fund the public services that everybody uses. And by taxing them to death, as we've seen by this Labour government, whether it be that national insurance increase, that jobs tax, we know what that's costing businesses. You've just heard a horrific example of that bill. The employment rights bill, however Labour want to brand it, that's going to put more red tape on employees and make it even harder to create jobs. The reality of throwing people on the scrap heap, taking them out of work.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 24 minutes past 6. Here we are. It is Monday, Bank Holiday Monday, of course, August the 25th. And lots of stories to talk about. Rafe Hadamanku is here. What about Angela Rayner? This was a story that broke sort of over the weekend. Angela Rayner's allies have defended her decision to buy an £800,000 seafront home after accusations of hypocrisy. Apparently, the Deputy Prime Minister says she needs a 3-bedroom flat in Hove as a base while working in London. Well, first of all, Hove isn't in London, and second of all, why does she need a 3-bedroom home?
Yeah, look, I'm not opposed to anyone buying property, but yes, it is a bit bizarre. She's got a lovely Grace and Favour apartment given to her for free as the
in London,
in central London.
Right. Why does she need another one?
Why does she need something in Hove, which is not a quick drive away? But also, you know, we hear so much about the crisis in coastal towns because of people buying second homes, not living there. This property is going to be empty for more than half the year, and when you've got local facilities and shops and restaurants closing down because people can't actually get properties in these areas, no one's talking about that sort of thing. But yes, this is her third property. You remember when John Prescott was Deputy Prime Minister, he was called Two Jags.
Yes.
And here she's now being called Three Pads.
Three Pads, exactly right. Well, Priti Patel said one rule for this condescending, hypocritical Labour minister, and a totally different set of rules for the hard-pressed, tax-paying, silent majority of Britain. Because the question about hypocrisy arises because of whether or not there's a premium on second homes in terms of council tax, and whether some local authorities will charge an awful lot more. And because this is technically her second home, she should be paying a lot more on it in terms of council tax. It depends on whether she... it is understood, they say, that Ms Rayner would not be renting out her Hove property or listing it as a holiday let, meaning it will be empty probably for more than half the year.
Yeah, and as I said, that's terrible for our housing crisis to have second homes that are standing empty when other people could be living there. We also, she says she'll be paying the full council tax, but we don't know whether she's going to have the single person's council tax discount, which would lower it hugely because her partner has been seen using the property as well. So there are questions over that too. But yeah, it's the hypocrisy, and it's also, it just sort of doesn't go along with Labour ideology and Labour thinking, does it?
No, right. Apparently she's been living there for quite a few months, seen with her partner Sam Tarry quite regularly. So last year she earned the nickname Two Homes Rayner for dividing her time between two right to buy council properties. That was up in the north. I don't know whether she's got rid of both of those now. I think she got rid of one of them.
I think she got rid of one of them. So this is she has three.
And listen,
here.
I'm quite like you. I'm quite happy with people buying property, but I mean it does seem to be quite a lot of money for someone who's on the salary she's on. I mean she's a government minister, but that only means that she's getting paid something like what, 120,000 a year or something like that.
And it just, you know, if you're trying to appeal to voters as a Labour Party Deputy Prime Minister, you might want to think, maybe I'll just wait a few years before I do this till I've left office.
Yes. Back to the subject of crime, also on the front page of the Telegraph, nearly 800 shoplifting offences reported to police now going unsolved every single day. The number of shoplifting investigations closed by police with no suspect identified has risen by 18%, up to now 289,464. That's in 1 year.
Yeah.
That's quite a lot.
You hear Sadiq Khan and other commentators saying life has never been so good. Tell that to shop owners who've seen a complete epidemic. This comes in the same day we've had in other papers reported 340% increase in violence against shopkeepers and shop workers. I mean, shocking antisocial behaviour and attacks on people. It is out of control. In London, you know, only 1 in 16, so 6% of shoplifting has a charge rate. And of course, they're still sending 7,000 policemen to Notting Hill Carnival.
To Notting Hill.
You know, we're going to lose.
What do you think the shoplift is going to be like elsewhere?
We're going to lose 3,500 police in London over the course of the next year. That could easily have been funded with the money that's being spent, 15 million, policing Notting Hill Carnival. Our priorities are in the wrong place. You tweet something, you get 6 police showing up to your place. You get your phone stolen or your shop broken into. Good luck if you get to see any police.
Yeah, please report it online is what you normally get. I'm going to show you a picture, actually. This is what I put out on Twitter over the weekend. I came out of the tube station on Saturday night in East London, where I live, and it was an absolute overflowing mess. And people were saying, well, it's Notting Hill Carnival weekend. Well, one, it's nowhere near Notting Hill, for a start. And I just came by that very bin this morning in my taxi on the way into work, and it's still there. Nobody's cleaned it up.
That picture is actually very telling. I just spent a week in Bavaria. I went to Munich and Nuremberg and Regensburg, and it really struck home how decrepit Britain looks at the moment.
Right.
I'm not talking about just the cleanliness, the respect.
Yes.
It was a huge noticeable difference. Returning back home was actually a very depressing experience.
Yeah.
Potholes.
Because this is a normal look in that part of the world.
Yeah,
right?
this is just look at the filthiness of the pavements.
Yeah.
That hasn't been cleaned in a while.
No.
So there's just the sense of decay is all around us. Potholes, buildings have deteriorated, boarded up, graffiti increasingly on public transport, rubbish overflowing. And
yes, as you say, Sadiq Khan, the Mayor of London, talks about London being one of the great cities of the world and how brilliant life is here and how tremendous. And I mean, that is not an image to me of a brilliant city.
No, but if you're a tourist, London looks great. If you're in prime central London, if you're in Westminster or Mayfair, it's great. Go out further, and then you see the real London, and it's not a pretty sight.
Yeah, the problem with Westminster and Mayfair and all of that is that you might be enjoying the way it looks, but you have to be careful and look over your shoulder in case there's a guy behind taking your watch.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, or worse. But there we are. 0344 499 1000. We're going to talk about Prince Andrew, I think, coming next, because we should do that. He's on a couple of the front pages this morning. Let's get a voice note from James.
Good morning, Mike. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm getting sick to death of listening to all this they come out with. It's so boring. We're going to smash the gangs. We're going to build more processing. We're going to process them faster. Stop talking absolute and just turn the boats round. Just turn them around. Use the Royal Navy. That's what they're there for. That's what we pay all this money for. They go on about the ECHR. Oh, they have where's their human rights? Well, what about our human rights then? We have every right to feel safe in our own country. That's what we pay all this tax for. It's unbelievable, Mike, isn't it? I'm getting sick to death of this. Anyway, Mike, enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks, mate.
James, thank you very much indeed. It is unbelievable, and with every sort of statement that comes out of Keir Starmer's mouth, yet more hilarity ensues, right? Here he is talking about the shoplifting crackdown he was going to have when he got into power.
So today I'm putting shoplifters on notice. You might get away with it under this weak Tory government, but if Labour takes power, we won't stand by while crime takes over our streets. We'll put 13,000 extra neighbourhood police on the beat. We'll scrap the shoplifters' charter, the £200 rule that stops the police investigating theft in your workplace. And we'll legislate to make sure assaulting and abusing shop workers is a standalone criminal offence, because you deserve to feel safe at work.
Yeah, so that number again, 289,464 shoplifting offences that are not solved. That's not even the number of shoplifting offences, by the way. That's just the ones that aren't solved.
It's just so frustrating, because you hear tough talk and you want to see action done, and nothing is done. I've just said, he's talking about violence against shoplifters. Today's papers, 340% increase in violent attacks. It's outrageous. We know what needs to be done. Singapore has got almost 0% shoplifting rates there because they have strict laws, enforced harshly, strict discipline. New York was able to do it with its broken windows policy. The solutions are there. Get tough and things will happen. And instead of that, we get tough talk and little else.
And then nothing else. Well, how about this for tough talk at the weekend? Keir Starmer put this out on Twitter. Our plan for change is about putting working people first. Working people. Can't say it without doing it like that. The £3 bus fare cap has already cut costs for families. We're extending it, making travel simpler, cheaper and better for everyone. Unfortunately for Downing Street, there was then a community note put on this particular announcement in which it said bus fare cap increased from £2 to £3 under Labour. Keir is not acknowledging that here. He already raised the bus fares already. So he's actually being deliberately disingenuous there, because he's claiming that he's capped the bus fares at £3, but they used to be £2. And in fact, Andy Burnham has capped it at £2 in Manchester. Just to make matters even worse, this morning in the Mail, it looks like bus drivers are now threatening a series of national strikes over their paying conditions. So that would include areas like Birkenhead, Brighton, Bristol, Cardiff, Chorley, London, Manchester, Newcastle, Preston, Stoke and Swindon, all without any buses. So that's how brilliantly he's helping working people getting on the bus.
And it's a real disaster in those areas because they have limited public transport as it is.
Yeah, exactly.
It's one thing in the bigger cities, but it's a complete shambles. But thank heavens for Elon Musk and community check notes, because at least none of the spin they may get from favourable newspapers.
Yeah. But would you not think, if you were running the Prime Minister's social media account,
that might happen,
if it got community noted, you might actually take it down? But no, they've left it up there for 3 days. Absolutely incredible. Coming up, we'll find out why Britain's heading for a bailout by the IMF and what Prince Andrew is now worried about. There's a new book coming.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 6:36. I'm Mike Graham. It is Bank Holiday Monday, of course. It is a March the 25th, Monday, August the 25th. I mean, not to say March Fool. Prince Andrew on the front pages, though, Rafe. Andrew facing bombshell new Epstein book, front page of Daily Mail. The Sun has got Virginia's Revenge from Beyond the Grave, which it kind of is, isn't it?
Yes, I mean, you know, he may have been forgiven for thinking that now that she's dead, the stories would stop. Unfortunately, far from it. We just had out earlier this month a devastating biography against him, which really pulled no punches and portrayed him in a very unflattering light more broadly. And now the memoirs upon which Virginia Giuffre had been working right up until the time of her death. She finished the 400-page manuscript before she died with instructions that it was to be published even in the event of her death. And it's going to come back again to hang like a millstone around his neck. And the book aims to shed light on the systemic failures that allowed the tracking of vulnerable individuals across borders. And she wants this truth to come out, but of course this is extremely bad timing. We just had yesterday the royal family were at church at Balmoral, with one notable exception. Prince Andrew was essentially not invited to that, and he was seen driving off in the opposite direction. So he's still very much in the wilderness.
Yeah, I mean, they say it's not known if any fresh allegations against Prince Andrew are revealed in the manuscript, but basically, not if we're going to publish it, say the book contains intimate, disturbing and heartbreaking new details about her time with Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell and their many well-known friends, which of course does include Prince Andrew. Yeah, it's the first time that we will have heard her speak about Prince Andrew since her first out-of-court settlement in 2022. Yeah, it is extraordinary, isn't it? And Ghislaine Maxwell was also interviewed, I think, at the weekend. Audio tapes, the 380-page transcript were released late on Friday from a two-day interview that she had with US Attorney General Todd Blanche last night. He asked Maxwell about banking records, indicating Epstein sent her something like $30 million from 1999 to 2007. She says, he never paid me for any nefarious reason. I don't think this money is mine. She maintained her innocence throughout the interviews, but she's still in prison. And it's been condemned by the victims of Epstein as a whitewash. Yeah. There's a huge feeling that the White House has basically given this disgraced socialite opportunity to try to whitewash and airbrush her past. You know, she said there was no list of famous names. Right. Donald Trump didn't do anything untoward, and there's just this feeling people have that she wants to have her sentence commuted or get pardoned, and so she's essentially doing what the Department of Justice wants, and that's to give a clean slate to any connection between Trump and Epstein. Right. Well, we'll see how that all goes. But certainly, you know, when I first heard the story about Virginia Giuffre, I woke up, I think, you know, sort of middle of the night, and suddenly thought, hey, I thought she was dead. But the book's coming out in October, so we await its pronunciations, I guess. As Henry II said, well, no one rid me of this meddlesome priest. Well, even when she's gone, Virginia's still around. I know, absolutely right. Let's talk about Rachel Reeves, because a big piece of the weekend suggested that she's been urged to drastically cut public spending to avoid Britain needing a 1970s-style bailout. It looks as though economists this weekend are saying that, you know, it's looking more and more likely that this is going to be a carbon copy of the 1970s Labour government when they had to go to the IMF cap in hand to be rescued. In the year of my birth, almost 50 years ago, 1976, under Dennis Healey, we had to humiliate ourselves and get a bailout from the IMF because of high inflation and borrowing. And unfortunately, we see Rachel Reeves following in precisely the same footprints. You know, and last night, Miss Reeves was blamed for causing almost 90,000 job losses in hospitality. Basically, more than half of all the job losses since the budget have been down to this as a result of her national insurance hikes on employers. And huge amounts of tax are being brought in through the national insurance, but that's
being completely countered by the huge spending increases.
Because it's not enough.
Yeah, the pay rises that have gone to the public sector. I mean, that's all that's happened. You're robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Yeah, exactly right. And borrowing costs have absolutely, steamrolled it upwards. And experts say the toxic combination risks a repeat of the Dennis Healey crisis, as you quite rightly say, in 1976. Andrew Sentence, a former member of the Bank of England's Monetary Policy Committee, says Rachel Reeves is on course to deliver a Healey-style 1976 crisis in late 2025 or 26. Like Healey, she has massively boosted public spending, borrowing and taxes, fueling both demand pull and cost push inflation. Unless policies are reversed, we are heading for an economic crash. Well, I've been warning about this since about last August, because it was very clear that, one, Rachel Reeves doesn't know what she's doing, and two, there's nobody seemingly in the Treasury keeping any kind of grip on her policies.
No,
She's flailing around.
You're absolutely right, and she wanted to be seen as, as the great sensible head here. Well, the picture of her in the Mail shows her wearing a hard hat, and I think that's probably appropriate, given what's about to land on her head.
Exactly right. But I mean, another blow for the economy is the manufacturers, and once again back again to Starmer's, sort of empty-headed boasts. He claimed that he had got an amazing breakthrough deal with the United States of America, but it turns out a load of British firms have now been hit with surprise US tariffs on more than 400 products that we didn't know were coming, because he didn't know about it.
Yes, so this is essentially because these items have elements of aluminium or aluminum, as they call it, and steel within them. And so because these products have metal in them, the companies in America, the steel bosses, are insisting that they get the full tariff, the same tariff that we were supposed to have lost. So again, it just goes to show how full of holes this deal was, and how badly it was put together. It was done in a hurry, just so that Starmer could again get a newspaper headlines.
Yeah, I know. Well, he claimed he had the deal before he had the deal, and it seems as though he doesn't have the deal. There's quite a good quote from Andrew Griffith, the shadow business secretary, who says Starmer's tiny tariff agreement turns out to have more holes than one of Donald Trump's golf courses, which is not a bad line, you have to say. But yeah, it's all things like JCB diggers, chived motorbikes, all kind of different sort of, as you say, steel made pieces of kit in one way, shape or form. And again, the government just doesn't tell the public the truth. People wonder why they're so unpopular in government. They're so unpopular because they tell a load of lies all the time.
And I'm just remembering Andrew Marr on another station where he said, well, now we have the serious people in control of the government.
Yes.
And everything we have talked about today just goes to show you how unserious and shambolic and incompetent they are.
He's a very unserious broadcaster, in my view. The one from Professor Jagjit Chadha, until recently head of the National Institute for Economic and Social Research, he basically said, I'm in a world in which I can now imagine this bailout happening, and we will be bereft in that case. We will not be able to roll over debt. We will not be able to meet pensions payments. Benefits will be hard to pay out. So technically speaking, you could actually physically run out of money. So that, if you are waiting for your pension check, you won't be getting it. If you're waiting for your welfare check, you won't be getting it.
And actually,
it's a massive story, this.
And it's far worse than the 1970s, potentially, because of the demographics of this nation are very different.
Yes.
And
there's a lot more people here as well.
The opportunity for growth, the amount of benefits that people are reliant on right now, the low productivity levels in this country, we are actually much less prepared for weathering this sort of a storm, particularly, of course, after the furlough scheme, after quantitative easing inflation, after we had all the other shocks that we've had recently, and the 2008 crisis. We're in a much more fragile position than in the 70s.
And we have no manufacturing base whatsoever, really, and so we don't really have the capability to suddenly up production and suddenly make more stuff and sell more stuff and thereby boost the economy. All we've got is a sort of service economy, which is being battered by taxes.
Yeah, and AI, of course, is going to be devastating for the service industry much more than for other industries, particularly in finance. Because so much of our economy is based upon financial services, and so much of that high-skilled stuff can be done by AI. So actually, this is all stuff coming down the pipeline, and I don't think we're prepared enough for any of it.
No. Well, there's a story in the Times saying in business that basically hospitality has lost almost 90,000 jobs in the past 9 months. Just under 89,000, according to an analysis by official jobs figures at the UK Hospitality Lobby Group. More than half of all jobs have been in the industry, based on an estimated 165,000 job losses reported by the Office for National Statistics. And these are all people who will now be on some kind of benefit.
And those jobs were lost, those 90,000 jobs primarily lost because of Rachel Reeves' national insurance hike. Right? So over half of the jobs lost under Labour have been because of Rachel Reeves.
Yeah, I know. It's absolutely shocking and shambolic. It's 6:45. Coming up, we'll talk some more about the warm weather, because it's going to be a lovely day today, apparently hotter than Morocco, according to the front page of the Daily Star. And also why more cancer patients have opted to go private, simply because the NHS is not fit for purpose. This is Talk.
What is that saying about Britain to the rest of the world, to the global community? What is it saying about what our benchmark is? You know, we're almost saying we don't have high standards anymore for all students up and down the country. And I think it's got to go in tow with, you know, it's one thing scrapping the compulsory resets, but if all you're doing is a white paper inquiry, some curriculum tweaks, not allowing schools to really dig deep, going all the way back to primary, all the way through to secondaries.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It is Bank Holiday Monday. It's August the 25th, and we are here, of course, for your delectation until 10 o'clock. Rafe Heidelmann-Coup is here. We've been talking about all the various news stories surrounding the government. There's now one about the NHS, because we don't talk about the NHS much so far this morning. Record numbers of cancer patients are opting for private treatment instead of relying on the crisis-hit NHS. An unprecedented 95,885 cancer admissions to private hospitals last year, up 30% since 2020, which is a huge number, isn't it?
It's, you know, and that's not surprising at all. You know, we have one of the worst cancer detection rates in the Western world. And of course, there's no surprise people want to go to get it done privately. My mother died of cancer a couple of years ago. Two very close friends of mine have been diagnosed recently with terminal cancer. That would have been detected probably in America and elsewhere, but also just waiting to get that initial chemotherapy thing. You know,
detection rates in this country are woeful, aren't they?
I would, really, you know, I urge everyone to actually go private and get a scan to try to see whether you've got something, because you can't rely, unfortunately, on the NHS now for those sorts of things. But it's not just chemotherapy. You know, knee and hip joint replacements, hernia, endoscopy, colonoscopies. All of these things are now, people are going private because they simply have an unacceptable service under the NHS, particularly, of course, post-COVID with those long waiting lists.
Because it's not even so much now, you know, whether or not to go private because it's quicker. It's now go private or don't get it done at all. Yeah. Because that seems to be, well, I mean, every day when we ask people to give us their stories about how woeful the NHS is, we get it all the time. We get letters from people saying, well, I had an appointment, they cancelled it, then they got another appointment, they cancelled that. I'm now waiting, I've been waiting 6 months to see a doctor. You know, the list just goes on and on and on. Some people waiting 2 years sometimes.
Well, there are now a record 8 million Britons with private health care. And that's because only 2/3 of patients now start treatment within 2 months of receiving an urgent referral.
It's awful, absolutely awful. Let's get a voice note from Hev. This is on the small boats.
Good morning, Mike and Rafe. Nice to see you on this beautiful, clear day. Yes, I can see the channel from my bedroom window. It is looking absolutely gorgeous out there. You can see the boats that are already taken off from over the channel. It's that clear. You can see the dogs on the beach, and you can even see the fleas on the dogs.
Well, you must have a very good telescope or some very good eyesight, that's for sure. But people are saying already today that there was a reason why there weren't any increases last week on the small boats crisis in terms of numbers, because there was an easterly wind apparently, which makes it more difficult for the crossing to be made. Apparently that's now switched, so we will now be back to, you know, 400, 500, maybe 700 arriving in one day.
But we've got this new deal with the French, right?
Oh yeah,
they're supposed to be slashing boats, pulling them back. This is now going to be the test. This weekend and the rest of September will be the test to see whether the French are really going to do what the Belgians will do. The Belgians will go into the water, stop the boat.
Which they did manage to do successfully, didn't they?
And so no one's leaving from Belgium really to come over. They're coming from France.
Yeah.
The French Union said it's too unsafe for us to go into the water. That's supposed to have been dealt with by Macron and Summer when they last met. So this is going to be the test to see it.
Well, incredibly, in the Times today, they've said that Yvette Cooper has got several new plans to introduce, including, and I don't quite understand the point of this, placing adverts in France, presumably in French newspapers, highlighting a one-in, one-out treaty, which will send small boat migrants back to France in exchange for those with the right to come to the UK. I mean, it's such a stupid idea anyway. Why would you advertise it to people who are now going to come to France in even greater numbers?
Advertising good policies is great. I've argued for it for years. We need to let people know. The Danes do it very well. But you've got to advertise a meaningful policy, not some Mickey Mouse ridiculous policy like the one-in, one-out system, which is no deterrent. Even we don't understand it fully. How are you going to expect somebody on the beach side?
I mean, here's how I think it's supposed to work. If you're, if you've got somebody that you know in the UK, basically you don't have to worry about getting on a small boat anymore. You just have to wait to be brought here by Border Force, because you'll be allowed to come here and claim asylum on the grounds that you know some people. So surely more people will come to France now than ever.
I mean, tomorrow Reform is going to be unveiling its platform, which says basically, if you arrive here, you're going to be arrested and deported. Now, that's the sort of policy you can advertise.
Yeah, right.
People will understand that. Arrive here, arrest, deportation, no hotel, camp, you know, those basic concepts people will understand. A real hostile environment messaging, that works effectively. This sort of nonsense is completely ineffectual.
Yeah, it really is. And completely and utterly hopeless. Let's talk about Gen Z, because they're on the front page of the Times today. Young adults are increasingly looking for traditional office jobs as they've become unhappy while working from home. Apparently, despite the fact they wanted to work from home because it felt a bit unsafe coming into the office during COVID, now they're all getting lonely.
Yeah, 40%.
Well, you could have told them this, couldn't you?
40% of them say they feel lonely because of their work things. And what is really funny here is loneliness is particularly high among young adults who pursued careers as social media influencers. Well, what a surprise. If you're pursuing a career as a social media influencer, loneliness is the least of your worries.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, but knock me over with a feather. Basically, 8,000 adults who did this survey for Bupa found loneliness is particularly high, as you say, in those particular media careers. Nearly half of them said working alone made them lonely, and 1 in 3 said they were planning a return to full-time traditional employment in the next 5 years. Problem is, there isn't much full-time traditional employment because so many people have spent so long trying to sort of lobby for a 3-day week or maybe a 2-day week in the office, or maybe certainly no more than 4. Most people, I mean, Fridays now in London are practically deserted.
Yeah, exactly.
There's hardly anybody here. I went out on Friday sort of late afternoon, and I was walking back home sort of through various parts of the city around here, and all the pubs were completely empty.
Yeah,
completely empty. It was a beautiful Friday afternoon, but there's nobody working.
I used to love the sound of people after work on the streets outside pubs, and it gave their life and an energy to the city. But even if you look at in London at the Elizabeth line in rush hour on a Friday morning, completely empty now. But you know, there's a lot of merit to this article. You know, I have a friend who's begun an internship after doing, you know, 5 years at university in computers. And basically, the internship is working from home.
Right.
So you're not learning from anybody on the job. I mean, the internship is supposed to learn from other people.
That's the whole point. What's the point of doing an internship on your own?
Yeah, basically, this is it.
It's insane, isn't it? 45% of young adults said they were considering moving to roles that provided more social interaction, compared with 27% of workers in all age groups. Because that's the other thing. I mean, if you've got a young person working in a city, more than likely they're probably not rich enough to buy themselves a place, so they're probably sharing a property, they're probably sharing a flat with some people, which is not a particularly pleasant way to spend your time. Older people, of course, who have got a bigger house, maybe in a garden, are more happy to work from home. They don't mind because they've got some, more than one room they can sit in.
Well, just the same as in COVID, right? For some people, COVID was glorious. They could sit in the garden and everything else. For others, they were on the top floor of a council development, sharing it with other people, or indeed with a single parents trying to deal with it all. But you need to, we are interactive people, and, work is about bonding with people. It used to be, of course, that most people, before social media, found their love life in the workplace. They got married to co-workers.
Of course.
How can you do that now? Basically, you're in your underwear during Zoom calls.
I know, absolutely shocking. One story we haven't yet done, actually, is this one on the front page of The Guardian. Ministers are going to legislate next month to abolish short prison sentences. So don't worry, if you are going to commit a crime and you are going to eventually be sent to prison, there's a pretty good chance if it's a short sentence, you won't ever have to go there.
Yeah, this is complete.
What is the logic of this madness?
This is complete insanity. It's worse than that. They said instead of going to prison, you'll be stopped from going to football matches.
Yeah.
You won't be allowed into the pub. Now, how on earth can you... Who's going to be enforcing this? Are you going to have pub landlords with a huge roster of faces there? Guess who, or something like this? I mean, it's...
Well, maybe this is their plan, that they're going to try and introduce this facial recognition thing everywhere, so that when you are... But even then, if you've got a facial recognition camera at the front of a pub, and somebody goes out, some big alarm goes off, who's going to be the one that tells the miscreant you can't come in?
Plus, also, if Christo does anything wrong, I will get the blame, because usually we get confused from each other all the time. So.
That's not a good thing. Shabama Mahmood, the Justice Secretary, is obviously behind all of this. This is another woman who seems woefully unprepared for the job that she's got, and woefully incapable of actually doing it. She says that she's very sure that the changes have to be implemented quickly before prisons have another capacity crunch next summer.
Well, just deport all the illegal...
Well, there's 12,000 still in there, right? That we still haven't deported.
Yeah, deport them. There is space there if you want to have space there. Now, here's another brainstorming idea for you. Why don't you release all those pensioners and carers who'll be put into prison for tweets that they've put?
Yes, that's a good idea. The bill will end short sentences of less than 12 months, barring exceptional circumstances, right? Ministers argue these are counterproductive and a driver of more crime. I don't understand how you drive more crime by putting people in prison. You lock people up who commit crime. Surely that's a good thing.
And get tough on crime, get tough on the causes of crime, and you will stop crime. I mean, this is back to basic stuff.
And as you say, community punishments such as seizing assets. Well, if you haven't got any assets, that's not going to work, is it? Introducing bans on travel, driving, and as you say, attending football matches. I mean, they're going to actually assign jobs to offenders as well, it says. They can have them filling potholes and removing graffiti.
Well, that I like. I've always supported the chain gang.
Chain gang's fine. Bring them back.
Get people actually contributing to society rather than playing computer games, whatever they do. Get them cleaning graffiti, cleaning up. We were talking about how decrepit our streets look. Get them into action, give back to the community.
Put some litter in some black plastic bags and take them down the dump. That would be a start, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Absolutely incredible stuff. We know you're out. We know you're out there. We've got lots of messages to tell you about. 0344 499 1000 is the number to leave a voice note. Of course, you can call us on that number as well. You can text us on 87222, and you can find us on X and Twitter at talkTV. Will Kingston's coming up in the next hour. Also, we're going to talk some more about the bailout that may be coming to the economy. We'll also talk about an Albanian gang member who smuggled people into Britain on a regular basis. Says the government doesn't really want to stop the crossings. And one incredible story of a migrant who's been put in prison up in Scotland, right, for raping a 15-year-old girl. Apparently lived as a tourist in 3 separate European countries before he even got here, and actually put pictures out on Instagram of him wearing new clothes that he bought, another picture of him sitting by the Eiffel Tower in Paris. Absolutely extraordinary stuff. The migrant story is still huge this morning. 7 out of 10 people say Keir Starmer is handling the immigration problem badly. I don't think there's anybody anywhere in the world who thinks Keir Starmer's doing anything well, is there? But don't worry, he put a nice picture of him out hugging Vladimir Zelensky yesterday for National Ukraine Day. We'll be back after the news.
My message to people smugglers is this. I think smashing the gangs is a deterrent. Smash, 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 smash the gangs. Smash the people smuggling gangs.
People smuggling puns.
He couldn't even smash an avocado for a piece of toast.
Or the people... What would that... The people...
I think smashing the gangs is a deterrent. Well, it might be if you smashed any, if you found any.
The people smash... Those... The smash...
And he hasn't smashed anything. I mean, literally all he does is he smashes records every sort of couple of weeks, where more and more people come in a period of 24 hours.
Smash the gangs that are running this vile trade.
You're never going to smash the gangs. That's something that basically is impossible. The gangs are like the Hydra. You cut the head off and another two grow.
So I did write to ministers and say that I wasn't convinced that smashing the gangs was the right sort of way of thinking about things.
We will smash the gangs that undermine our security.
Keir Starmer has just tweeted 15 minutes ago. He says, I know you're angry about immigration. I get it. We will smash the people smuggling gangs at source. Maybe I'll just read it all in his accent, shall I?
There is no return to freedom of movement. We have left the EU. I do not accept that prevents us working with other police units here, with prosecutors here, to smash the gangs.
Well, I'm sure the smuggling gangs are absolutely quaking in their boots now. Keir Starmer's on their case. Solving this issue, smashing the gangs, is that the impossible dream, Tom?
It really seems beyond him at the minute, I have to say.
We're going to get the evil people smugglers and we're going to smash them and we're going to put them in jail. That will solve the migrant crisis.
Prime Minister Keir Starmer's promise to smash the gangs has resulted in just 5 convictions. Hurrah for operating small boats.
So what he really wants to say is that this policy of smashing the gangs is a total and utter disaster. There isn't a cat in hell's chance that it's going to work. You just can't say it.
It's crap. That's what he's basically saying. I know you're angry about immigration. I get it. Mark my words, I will take back control of our borders. That means cutting migration, ending the use of asylum hotels and ramping up our efforts to stop small boat crossings.
It's like a parallel universe, the real world, as told by the impressive David Bolt, and Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves' fantasy world.
We will smash the people smuggling gangs at source.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. Coming up to 3 minutes past 7. It's Bank Holiday Monday, 25th of August. Ray Parliamentou is here. We're going to talk to Will Kingston, political commentator, coming up in this hour, of course, as well. Lots going on. Lots of migrant stories this morning to talk to you about. And, of course, because it's the Bank Holiday, it's Notting Hill Carnival weekend, so we'll be speaking about that as well. Angela Rayner's under fire for managing to get herself a third home for £800,000 somewhere in Hove, which is down near Brighton. Apparently, she needs a place near London, even though she's already got a place in London. It's quite difficult to understand this story, but we'll try and get to the bottom of it. We'll also tell you all about the number of migrants who have been coming over here in their droves since Keir Starmer got in. That number now 51,318. The belief is that because of the rather nice weather today, where we're being told it's warmer than Morocco, there's going to be quite a few coming over. So you might as well prepare those bank holiday migrant hotel rooms, because they're going to be needing to be cleaned. They're going to need to be prepared because there's more coming. 0344 499 1000. Also talking about Rachel Reeves and how she's going to need an IMF bailout. Let's get a voice note from Richard.
Morning, Mike. Richard and Corby. I'm like everyone else, I'm worried about us running out of money, but if the government come out and said, listen, we're shelving net zero or we're scrapping net zero, no more will be spent on that, I'd have a little bit of respect for them, but I can't see them doing it. But that should be the first thing that goes.
It should indeed, Richard. Thank you very much indeed. I'm Mike Graham. This is, of course, Morning Glory. We are with you all the way through until 10 o'clock. Bank Holiday Monday. Let's get it on. Delta says this on the text. I boarded up my house on Notting Hill, doors, windows. Also this year I placed high-grade barbed wire they use on prison fences and placed it on my drive and in my garden, hoping it would deter carnival goers from desecrating my property. Goodness gracious me. Well, let's hear from one of the police officers in charge, Met Commander Charmaine Brenier, telling us how great it all is at Notting Hill.
But we're there to make sure that we tackle serious violence, and obviously there are concerns around crowd safety. Our role there is going to make sure that we intervene for anyone who's coming to commit crime. It's going to be to protect those from serious violence, such as knife crime and violence against women and girls, and also to support the organisers into managing crowd safety. So last year there were 8 stabbings, and unfortunately and tragically 2 people were murdered. That is absolutely at the forefront of our minds as we enter Carnival this year. Our focus remains on tackling serious violence and taking knives off the streets so that we can deliver a safe and secure Carnival.
So taking knives off the streets, deterring serious violence, hoping that there'll be less arrests this year than last. So far, Rafe, I think they've arrested 240 people, 100 before it started and 140 on the first day. 15 of them have been arrested for attacking police officers. This from Celia says, that Met policewoman sounds very capable. I wouldn't send any police to the Notting Hill Carnival. I'd put up posters saying, enter this space at your own risk.
Yeah, that's probably be like that film The Purge.
Yes.
Just let everybody to basically take each other out. Look, the Notting Hill Carnival is the most dangerous event in Britain.
Yeah.
I think it's probably the most dangerous annual event in Europe. You don't hear police coming up with messages like that, basically expecting stabbings and sexual assaults. When it's there are no machete fights at Glastonbury as much as we do at Glastonbury.
Yeah.
When the coronation was there in the Mall, you didn't have reports of sexual assaults going on. There's something deeply rotten here. I actually looked into this a couple of years ago to compare the Notting Hill Carnival with a similar-sized London event.
Yes.
The Platinum Jubilee, also over a weekend, same number of people attending.
Yeah.
The Notting Hill Carnival was 35 times more dangerous, more violent. There's something deeply rotten in this, and your caller there is quite right. You know, in Florida they board up their shops and their houses and flee their homes when there's a hurricane arriving.
Yeah.
In Notting Hill they do that when Carnival arrives. That tells you all you need to know about this. If it was any other event that had this happened at, a St George's Day parade, a sporting fixture, it would be cancelled tomorrow. This is two-tier policing. Why? Because the Notting Hill Carnival is a sacred festival in the Church of Diversity, which is the new state religion. It's a holy weekend which is used to perpetuate this myth that diversity built Britain and that multiculturalism is a great success story. We need to end this ridiculous reverence, this cult-like reverence of Notting Hill.
And there is a sort of media conflagration of it all as well, isn't there? Like, dancing in the streets, the front page of The Guardian, Notting Hill Carnival, Europe's biggest street festival, got underway yesterday with about 1 million people expected to attend. And a lovely picture of some kids wearing some very colourful clothing, and it all looks great. But that's not the heart of the Notting Hill Carnival anymore. The heart of the Notting Hill Carnival is when the darkness falls and the police can't see who's doing what, and it starts to get pretty nasty.
And the Notting Hill Carnival of today is not the Notting Hill Carnival of the 1980s and 1990s. And also, yes, you may have 7,000 police deployed there, which is a huge cost to the city, but even if they see an assault happening, a sexual assault or a robbery, they often can't get to the people because the crush is so big. And the police genuinely fear a mass casualty event because of this overcrowding. It's completely outgrown Notting Hill. There's no connection with the area any longer whatsoever. If they want to have this continue, use one of the parks. Hyde Park is close to Notting Hill, but even better, if they want to bring it back to their community, go to Brixton, to Burgess Park, go to Hackney, to Victoria Park, have a security cordon there, have metal detectors, dog sniffers for drugs and weapons and everything else, ticket it, people pay to get in, it can be self-financing, but you will avoid the flotsam and the jetsam and the nasty characters from coming in.
Exactly right. Because they apparently had some kind of watch list, the police, because they're using facial recognition for the first time, some kind of watch list in excess of 16,500 people. And what sort of watch list is that exactly? And if these are people that shouldn't be walking around on the streets of London for the Notting Hill Carnival, why are they walking around anyway?
Yeah, exactly. Well, this is the one time...
Who are they?
This is one time when I think facial recognition technology actually can be very useful for identifying these people.
Yeah.
But of course, we just see there, people have their faces covered as well.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be going to a carnival
How is that even allowed?
with your faces covered. I think it's quite disgraceful.
It really is. It's a shocking state of affairs. And what we now know, unfortunately, is that Monday, Bank Holiday Monday, tends to be the day when, you know, the kids have all gone, you know, the floats have all gone, the sort of the family atmosphere has all gone, and it's just left to the troublemakers.
Yeah, and of course a lot of this is with the influence of grime music. It's a lot different from the reggae sort of stuff. You're getting a lot of this gang-based music. Attracts those sorts of people. But it's also a red letter day for all the criminals of North London, South London, East London, who can go about with relative impunity because they know all the police are far too busy in West London.
Yeah, absolutely right. Rafe, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Rafe Halamanku there gave us a bit of an early look at the newspapers this morning as well. I've got this from Nicola in Horsham, who says, "Morning, Mike. I'm so fed up of people saying we're not tolerant. I'd like to remind everyone that we've suffered this for 7 years now. We've had 7 years of being patient, but incompetent government after incompetent government means we've had enough. Brits are all about fairness and the law. When we consistently see fake asylum seekers breaking into the UK and jumping the queue in front of our own, what on earth do people expect? I've never been more proud to be British, and well done everyone for peacefully protesting." This is, of course, with reference to all of the protests that have been going up and down the country, from Birmingham up to Manchester, up to Newcastle, Leeds as well, and also, of course, down here in London. Lots more protests to come as well. Let's talk to Will Kingston now, political commentator and host of the Fire at Will podcast. Will, very good morning to you.
G'day, Mike. I'm calling on location as a Notting Hill refugee. I think I've probably got a better asylum claim than all of the asylum seekers in the United Kingdom, as the government is subsidising sexual assault and murder every year.
Absolutely right. I mean, it seems incredible, as Rafe was just explaining, does it not? It seems incredible that he can actually, you can sit there and say the government's now sort of advertising, the police are kind of advertising how great this is and why you should come, even though likely there will be loads of people stabbed, there'll be dozens of people arrested, maybe hundreds, and there's a pretty good chance that you might need hospital treatment as a result.
Yeah, that's right. We can say to a degree of statistical certainty that today there will be sexual assault, there will be police officers who will be assaulted in their droves, there will be, again, it's so morbid to say this, but if you look at the last few years, there is a very high likelihood that someone will be killed today at this festival.
I'm afraid so. And the police are more or less admitting that.
And the police are admitting that. And once again, the government are pumping money into this. Again, I was being a bit cheeky when I said it, but it's true. This is government subsidised sexual assault and murder. And the reason, and Rafe, I think, put this very well, the reason that it endures is because of the cult of multiculturalism and diversity. And as a result of that, we have to just kind of nod our heads and say, well, what a wonderful festival, what a wonderful tribute to modern Britain this is.
Yeah.
It is a disgrace and it needs to stop. And I think you actually said this very well yesterday, and you had the guts to say this yesterday on Talk when you said, look, let's just be honest about this. It's not British. It's a celebration of Caribbean culture.
Yeah,
it's not British in any way, shape or form.
No, it isn't.
So more people need to have the guts to say that.
Yeah, and you're not allowed to say stuff like that because that would be wrong, you know, and that's not the London that I know, and all of this. It's absolute nonsense what people sort of are willing to believe and what the police actually are willing to believe, because we know the police have been captured by the whole woke ideology, and they all stand around saying what a great event it is, despite the fact, with the one hand, explaining that people have been murdered, people have been sexually assaulted. I mean, that police commander, Charmaine, talks about, you know, if you get sexually assaulted or raped, just come and hang out in the safe space and we'll talk to you and see how you feel. Great.
Yeah, I do wonder how many of them genuinely believe it and how many of them are incredibly frustrated by having an administrative layer that is bought into woke ideology. I don't remember, if you remember that bloke, the police officer a few weeks ago who was caught on the home video camera saying, mate, I don't really want to be here. But I hear you're going to a protest tomorrow and I've been told to tell you to, you know, consider your behaviour. I think, again, for every woke police officer, I think there's 10 who are so incredibly frustrated that they have to tolerate this nonsense that is being inflicted upon them. So I do have a lot of sympathy for the police. And I think I also saw a survey a few weeks ago that said something between 80 to 90% of police officers are scared to go and actually police at the Notting Hill Carnival because they think they'll get assaulted, which, you know, unfortunately, there's a very good chance.
Oh, there is a pretty good chance. I mean, there's 7,000 of them there, 15 assaults yesterday on the police, 240 arrests so far. That includes 100 arrests of people before it actually started. And we were saying earlier that we've got, like, what, 100 police officers for, I suppose, every 1,000 people or something like that. I mean, it's ridiculous the way that the ratio is, and how, as Rafe said, for the rest of the city, for the rest rest of London, you know, it's pretty much lawless because there's not enough police to go around.
Yeah. There was a really funny, well, darkly funny clip I saw on Twitter yesterday, which was superimposing Sadiq Khan's message to London about the Notting Hill Carnival, which was full of the stupid, you know, tired tropes about multiculturalism and diversity, and then footage of actually what happens. And it was, you know, young men grinding on women and, you know, people punching other people. And I think that actually, again, in a dark way, encapsulated the issue. And
yes, I saw that video,
The footage, the branding is tolerance, kindness, diversity, all of the stupid leftist buzzwords that we have to endure now. And the reality is so incredibly different. But if you dare to question it, suddenly you're a racist. And again, it just comes back to the only cure for cancel culture is courage culture, and it requires more people to have the courage to point out the bleeding obvious.
Yeah, absolutely right. Let's have a look at that video that you mentioned in passing there, not the one about the Notting Hill Carnival, but the one of police officers knocking on an anti-migrant protester's door up in the West Midlands.
They're aware that you might be wanting to attend that planned protest, and obviously that's absolutely fine. You've got a freedom of speech, and that's no issues at all. And all they've asked me to do, mate, it sounds daft, so I apologise, and it's really woeful. It's not something I agree with, but I've been asked to do it. It's just to drop a leaflet about being involved in a protest. Actually, it sounds bad, but it is what it is.
Do me a favour. Take it back to them and write back on it to them. Say, we will no longer be silenced, and from me, with love. Cheers. Thanks very much.
With love?
Yeah, with love, yeah. Because the silent majority of Britain will no longer stay silent. Tell them that. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
I mean, what's that even about? Why on earth is he even doing that? He knows he doesn't want to do it. He knows it's a pointless activity. He knows that he can't enforce it, and yet he does it anyway.
Well, you know, if you know, Rupert called you up, Mike, tomorrow and said, do this or do that, then you are somewhat obligated to do it. It's your boss.
Slightly different situation, but that's another story.
That's another story. But the point remains that you can tell this bloke, the police officer, is the kind of guy who would be having a pint in the pub with the person that he's putting the leaflet under the door of. It's not his fault. It's not his fault. He's doing the best he can. The police officers aren't paid a great deal of money. It's probably, he looks about, what, 50, 55, maybe something like that. It's probably something he's done his whole life. He can't just go off and then become an accountant. You know, and in the last 10 years of his career, he's seen what was a noble profession change to basically being an arbiter of morality. And that morality
and of behaviour, which is in no way criminal. You know, the police have got no business. The police got no business recording anything like a non-crime hate incident. You know, the clue's in the word, non-crime. That means it's not for you as a member of the police officer fighting crime to actually start approaching people who are not committing a crime to tell them not to do it.
Yeah, that's right. But I think we do need to direct our anger most of the time, not at the coppers, but we need to direct it at the people who are creating these laws, which means that non-high crime.
But they're not even creating laws, are they? This is the thing. They keep getting told by governments that they're not the law. They keep being told to stop recording them, and yet they're still recording them. I think what the police need to do as individuals is to say, actually, no, we're not going to do that, because they're perfectly within their rights. I mean, they're not allowed to go on strike. But surely to heavens, they're within their rights to say, if you're asking us to do things which are out with the job description, we shouldn't be doing them.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. And I think it's interesting. Like, there is obviously kind of, and I've spoken to police officers and they say, if you want to get ahead in the police forces of the United Kingdom, you buy into the woke ideology. And so there's obviously this layer of leadership which is just spouting the same terms that we hear every day in the corporates and in media and in politics, because they know that if you say that Britain is a kind, tolerant, multicultural country, and our job as police officers is to enforce that, then you're going to get a commissioner job. So I agree with you. I think that police officers need to take a stand, but I think really we need to be putting pressure as well on the leadership layer of the police forces of the United Kingdom, so they're not forcing.
And so does, by the way, Yvette Cooper, because that's her job as well. She's the Home Secretary. She's the boss of the police. So does Sadiq Khan, also the boss of the police. They're the ones that also have to be given a different message.
Well, again, I don't want to make the obvious point because I know everyone who's watching this is thinking it. But there's so much real crime that is taking place at the moment,
Right.
and you only have so many hours in the day to actually, do your job.
Yeah.
And for every minute that you're dealing with, woke carnivals or non-crime hate incidents or looking at Twitter to try and find people saying nasty things, you are not investigating sexual assault, murder, phone theft. London's now the leader of the world in phone theft. This is a balancing act. You have to actually weigh up how much time in the day you have. And obviously they're not putting their time in the right places.
Well, this is the thing. Nearly 800 shoplifting offences reported to police going unsolved every single day. These are new figures coming out from the Home Office. The number of shoplifting offences which have not even been given a suspect, right? 289,464 in the last year alone. And that's not the number of shoplifting cases. That's just the number they don't know who did it.
That's right. And
that's
because
incredible.
no one has trust in the police anymore, so they don't report. And therefore, it looks like artificially the numbers may be either flatlining or going down. And people like Sadiq Khan say, well, problem solved.
I know.
We don't have crime in this country.
It's absolutely mad, isn't it? Absolutely mad. Listen, Will, stay with us because we've got plenty more to talk about, including Angela Rayner's third home, because obviously, she hasn't got enough houses. She loves a house, doesn't she? No wonder they put her in charge of housing. She's very good at putting in charge of her own housing. Let's get a voice note from Matt on the migrant hotels.
Mike, Matt in Hove here. Now, we all know that when the government voluntarily releases illegal migrant numbers and data, they're doing it to cover up somewhere else. And I've often wondered why they're so happy to nail down the number that are currently in hotels. At the moment, 32,500, they say, which has gone up since last year. But in the last 5 years, 176,000 small boat migrants have come over. So it just shows you how many are in HMOs. That's the worrying thing, not the hotels. That's why they're happy to say, oh, this is how many are in the hotels. They won't mention how many are in HMOs though, will they? It's way higher.
Well, they're going to have to, because at the end of the day, Matt, we will keep asking them those questions. We will keep demanding that information is shared with all of us, the taxpayers, because that's where we are. Coming up, we'll talk some more about shoplifting. We'll play you what Keir Starmer said he would do about shoplifting shortly before he became Prime Minister. It won't come as any great surprise to you to know that he hasn't done any of it. 7:22.
When you look at the system, in one way it boils down to two very simple metrics. You've got to reduce the number of people who are coming in to apply for asylum. The inflow has got to be lessened, and the outflow of people being processed and when they are refused being returned to their country or another safe country has got to be increased.
the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 7:25. It's Bank Holiday Monday, of course. We're smack bang in the middle of Notting Hill Carnival season. Steve says this country is a tinderbox waiting to explode. The electorate have had enough of successive governments who care more for foreigners than their own citizens and the unfair financial burden of it all. Well, we'll talk some more about that in a minute. Let's get a voice note from Michael.
Hello, Mike. It's Michael from Norwich. Thank God you're back. Oh, thank God it's Monday, even if it is a bank holiday. We've had nothing to listen to all weekend. Welcome back, Mike.
That's very kind of you, Michael. Sorry about that. I'm going to take some time off from time to time. I can't just continually work. B in Bristol says, I think our ranch had that photo opportunity done to show Keir anybody can come in on a dinghy. Brilliant advert for small boat crossings. I hope the guy rowing was arrested. Yeah, I know. Michael says the same. Morning, Michael says, I know Skeg Vegas isn't the best, but we don't have this floating about offshore. Yeah, off the coast of Hove. Is where she's been floating on a dinghy. This is Angela Rayner, of course, because she's got herself a new house. Will Kingston's still with us, political commentator, host of the Fire at Will podcast. Will, let me play you this. This is what Keir Starmer said in light of those shoplifting figures I just gave you. Charge rate of only 1 in 16, which is 6% for shoplifting. Here's what Keir Starmer said would happen when he was in opposition.
So today I'm putting shoplifters on notice. You might get away with it under this weak Tory government. But if Labour takes power, we won't stand by while crime takes over our streets. We'll put 13,000 extra neighbourhood police on the beat. We'll scrap the shoplifters' charter, the £200 rule that stops the police investigating theft in your workplace. And we'll legislate to make sure assaulting and abusing shop workers is a standalone criminal offence, because you deserve to feel safe at work.
Yeah, you deserve to feel safe at work. I mean, it's laugh, isn't it? I mean, unfortunately, we're laughing, but, I mean, this is him all over. He makes these promises, this particular one made before they got in, and since then, it's just got worse. The shoplifting epidemic has increased, not decreased. It's gone up by 18%. That's even higher than inflation.
Yeah, a couple of thoughts. Number one, it is just so frustrating seeing a leader of one of the great countries in the world, the great country of the world, who has such a lack of gravitas, has such a lack of presence in that sort of speech. He sounds like, a small man who is trying to sound like a big man. So I find those speeches really uncomfortable to listen to. But the other thing I would say is, and again, this is one of those things that people don't want to say, but I don't think he really wants to solve the problem. He knows that these sorts of crimes are overwhelmingly committed by people who have either come to the country illegally or alternatively who are from ethnic minority backgrounds. We know this now to a degree of statistical certainty. Yeah. And as a result of that, if you do start to really crack down, what it will do is it will call into question the whole multicultural project that the Labor Party has built their mission upon. So I don't think you will see a great deal of change. You certainly won't from Sadiq Khan. He's the high priest of this sort of ideology. Right. And you won't see the same sort of change in terms of boats as well. Because if you do start to solve these problems, ironically, it calls into question the religion of the modern left.
Yeah, I think that's right. And they're constantly being embarrassed by having to go further to the right to appease the people of the country, while at the same time upsetting the left in their own party. I mean, we've seen it with the welfare restrictions and the welfare reforms that they wanted to try and push through. They got defeated on that. We see it with the small boats. I mean, Rafe was saying this. We got David Blunkett today in the Times actually saying that we should suspend our membership of the ECHR and we should leave the UN Refugee Convention. Now, these were things that were being said 5 years ago by people like me and people like Nigel Farage, and we were called extremists, and now it's a sort of mainstream Labour belief.
Yeah, we need to find a term for those old school lefties from, I guess, before Blair, who just believed in old school socialism and wealth redistribution, all those old left-wing things before the left went absolutely insane. And we need to find a term for that, because they actually now sound relatively sensible. I'm not a fan of socialism or welfare redistribution, but at least I think that they actually had something which was an ideology which it was plausible, which you could get around. And I can only imagine how frustrating it must be for old leftist, leaders to look at what they've become today in terms of the identity politics, in terms of all of the nonsense which they now basically hang their hat upon and go, this doesn't improve people's lives. It's actively making lives worse for so many people in this country.
And you just have to look at that image of people running into the sea, jumping onto boats, clambering over into dinghies, coming to this country. We know that most of the people in these videos that we're watching are now living here, right?
Yep.
They've all come. It's very, very unusual for any of them to come to any harm because it's not as dangerous as it used to be because the boats are bigger and the people have got better at getting over here. And, of course, all they've got to do is get into British waters and suddenly Border Force will bring them the rest of the way. The whole thing is a total and utter mess. It's ridiculous. But in a moment, we'll talk about Angela Rayner and her hypocrisy. But have a listen to this from Mike. Is this new or have we done that one?
Mike here in Cheshire. So 7 out of 10 people think Keir Starmer is not doing a good job over the illegal immigration issue. But who on earth are the 3 people out of 10 say he is? That's really puzzling. Also, speeding up the asylum system. Does that mean that everyone is going to get a pass and be allowed to stay in this country? Because that's what it sounds like. All the best.
Yeah, Mike, it's a very good point. If people are going to be processed more quickly, how are they going to be thrown out of the country more quickly if there is no means by which to do so? That's the big problem. Let's talk about the protests a little bit. Betty says this, Mike, the problem with protests now is all the idiots in football shirts mouthing off to the cops. Just brings back Association of Football Hooligans and the UK flag. This is why the government is ignoring the protests. They are waiting for it to kick off and the whole movement will be tarred with the same brush. I think it depends on where you look, to be honest, Betty, because Chris in Chester says this, Saturday my wife and I attended the UKIP event in Liverpool. We're not right-wing, we're just in fear of what is happening to our nation. And I think you've got to be careful which... shall we say, outlet of news you watch, depending on what's going on in various protests up and down the land. But let's talk about Angela Rayner, if we may, and will, before we let you go. £800,000 third home. She apparently needs a house in Hove, which is nowhere near London, because she needs a place in London, or close to London, even though she's got a flat in London.
Yeah, I'm a bit torn on this one, Mike. So, number one, in terms of the footage that we saw of her vaping out on the dinghy, this is probably the next Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. If I have to put my life on it, I think that she will take Keir Starmer's job in the next 18 months to 2 years. Look, I understand, woman of the people, relatable, all that sort of thing. But I'm sorry, if you're going to be the leader of one of the great countries in the world, don't get photographed looking like that in a dinghy, vaping away, on the beach. It's just so unstatesman or unstateswoman-like, however you want to put it. It's a really bad look.
It's been suggested to me that she did it as a bit of a stunt just to wind people up, which may be true. Either way, it's not a great look for her, is it?
Of course it's not. Again, I'm all for politicians being authentic. The reason why Keir Starmer is so uniquely awful is that he doesn't understand authenticity. She is more authentic. I get that. That's great.
But she's authentic now with 3 houses.
Yeah. No. So
not quite as authentic as most British people.
I struggle with this. Like, I want people who do well to be in politics. The reason that politics is so bad at the moment is we've got these mediocrities who can't do anything else, and therefore they go into politics. I do have questions over how you actually can get 3 properties on a politician's salary, which is not great. It's good, but it's not great.
It's hard to get. I mean, I know 2 of the properties I think she's been given, but I thought she had 2 other properties up north as well. So that would actually be 5 properties that she's got.
Yeah, and this is obviously a really big issue in American politics. It's almost a running joke now that if you see Nancy Pelosi invest in stocks, put all your money in that straight away because there's inside information. So I'm not going to begrudge her for having properties. I want successful people in politics, but I am going to have a little nagging thought in the back of my mind. I know the optics aren't good, and I know, how do you actually
But when you say
that
successful people in politics, all she's ever done is worked for either a trade union or worked in the public sector. She's successful in the sense that she's got a good job and she's Deputy Prime Minister, but she hasn't actually done anything other than take money from the public pretty much all of her life.
Yeah,
I don't call that success.
I'm not speaking specifically about her, but I'm saying if we basically knock politicians for having houses and money, then Farage is gone, then Trump is gone, then there are a lot of actually kind of good people.
Farage has made his money outside of politics.
I agree with that.
There's nothing wrong with that. The point is she has never made money outside of politics. So if she's made enough money in politics to be able to afford to buy an £800,000 flat and she's not even going to live in it for half the year, I would suggest to you that is not necessarily a success story. It's more of a story of ripping off the country and making a lot of money on expenses.
I agree with that. I agree with all of that. We're aligned. And there are just that nagging thought in the back of your mind. How has she managed to kind of organise this property portfolio?
Yeah.
But for me, the bigger issue is she... And people need to be conscious of this. I think she will be the next Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. The property for me is less of an issue than the fact that she so obviously does, like Keir Starmer, not have the poise, the gravitas, and to be quite frank, the intellect to be able to lead this country out of what is a very dark moment.
Yeah, it is a very dark moment. Good to talk to you. Will Kingston, thank you very much indeed. Policeman commentator, host of the Fire at Will podcast. Coming up, we've got so many great messages coming in. This one from Simon. Morning, Mike. The police go to people's homes to warn them about non-crimes and been going on a lot longer than people think. In 2019, I went to my son's primary school Christmas performance and a male parent who had recently been convicted of grooming his wife's teenage sister was allowed to be in attendance. I, among others, took exception to this and myself in particular approached the head teacher and requested his removal, and he was asked to leave. The following evening, the police attended my home unannounced to inform me how upset he was that he hadn't committed a crime and to tell me that the school had requested I be told that any further outbursts would result in me being banned from the school. The two police officers were embarrassed, apologetic and clearly carrying out orders and agreed to leave fairly swiftly. Yeah, I'm sure it has been going on for a lot longer than we know, but it doesn't make it right. It doesn't mean we shouldn't stand up to it. Do you know what I'm saying? 0344 499 1000. It's 7:37. This, of course, is Morning Glory.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 7:38. I'm Mike Graham. This one from Joe in Norwich. He said, happy bank holiday, Mike. You've forgotten to mention Norwich protest again, which was yesterday. I've thought of a good idea. We should put Union Jack stickers on all our bins. It is much easier and cheaper than putting flags up. Plus, they're more likely to be collected. A great show as always. Well, there is that, isn't there? Let's talk to Mike Neville now, retired Scotland Yard Detective Chief Inspector, because it's Notting Hill Carnival weekend, of course. So far, 240 arrests, 15 attacks on police officers, use of facial recognition, probably for the first time en masse like this. Let's see how it's going to go today. Mike, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
So Monday normally is the day that it sort of gets a bit tasty at Notting Hill, isn't it? So so far it hasn't been too bad. And actually I find the coverage of it has been fairly non-existent. I mean, I was watching the news last night and there was hardly any coverage of Notting Hill at all.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the establishment don't want us hearing the facts. Today is usually the worst day, as you said. If there is going to be any violence, it's usually on the Monday. What's worrying for the police is one of the most important officers will not be there today, and that is PC Rain. The weather is good. And unfortunately, if the weather's good, whilst it's nice if you're a peaceful member going to the Carnival or anywhere else on a bank holiday, unfortunately, if the weather's good, this is more likely to result in violence and stabbings and the like.
Yeah, that is the unfortunate case, isn't it? What do you make of this use of facial recognition? They arrested 100 people before the Carnival started. They said they had a watch list, though, of 16,500. I mean, what sort of people are on a watch list like that?
So on the watch list will be people, particularly those involved in gang violence or maybe even drug dealers or those wanted for serious offences who are from from that area. So that's what they'll put on the watch list. And then they have 2 operators in the van who think they've spotted the people, and then they have a team of officers who move in and make arrests. I mean, when I was involved in the Carnival, I supplied the human super recognisers who do a similar job. They also are deployed, so the super recognisers spot gang members and the like, so they can be detained, taken away. So I mean, credit to the Met for being proactive, really, and getting rid of people who could cause violence there before they even get there. I know they had 260 other people who were on either bail conditions or been recalled to prison to keep them away as well. So,
and so how would they do that then? What's the physical kind of ability the police have got to keep them away?
Well, so if you've got gang members and you can possibly arrest them for crimes before Carnival, you've got some information that they committed a crime, you can arrest them and then give them police bail conditions. One of them would be do not go to the Carnival. And if people are known to be involved in violence, let's say they were previously involved in Carnival and they're licensed from prison, then if they can produce some intelligence that they intend to go there or they're likely to do something else bad, then you can get them recalled.
Right, OK. So we'll wait and see what happens throughout the course of the day today. What do you make of this story? It's a migrant story, actually, about migrant hotels, according to Home Office leaks now, are being told they're going to have to actually take foreign criminals, people that we know will have committed serious crimes like arson, and they're now instructing these hotels that they must take them.
Well, I just think it's more indication of a broken society, isn't it, Mike? You've got the Justice Minister, Mahmood, going on about, we inherited a broken prison system. Well, that was over a year ago. You can sort these things out. If I was in charge of prisons a year ago, I would have got the army involved, I would have built some camps, taken over some camps, got them renovated, put in low-risk offenders where, some barbed wire fence and a dog will keep them at bay. And you could deal with a lot of people like that, rather than this attitude, we'll let a load of prisoners out after just a third of their sentence, not even 40% anymore, so we can lock these people up. Or they're accommodating them in hotels. And it sends the wrong message. And all the time, I agree with your previous guest, in the sense that this government isn't committed to locking up offenders. They're lying to the public. Their left-wing view is that everybody who commits crime is in fact a victim of society. So any excuse they can have for letting them out, particularly if they can blame the Tories or some previous administration, then they'll do it. They're just not committed to locking up offenders.
No, they're really not. And presumably that's also why they're not that committed to going after shoplifting attackers either, because 800 shoplifting cases a day apparently go unsolved, according to some new figures we've got here. I think in the Metropolitan Police Force, it's the worst record of all. Only 6% is the charge rate, never mind the conviction rate.
And it's crazy, isn't it, Mike? You find me a shop in London that's not got CCTV. Nearly every one of these crimes is recorded. Some people will say, you can't see the face, they've got a mask on. Well, I had the world's first conviction using pattern recognition, where you can see the guy there's got very distinctive clothes, very distinctive trousers, one of them, trainers. So you can identify them. So in the police, there's an obsession with this live facial recognition, which is all very good and useful at Notting Hill Carnival. But they could solve thousands more crimes if they used it effectively in these situations where, because some of these shoplifters, you can see some really organised gangs, but a lot of the people just blatantly walk into a shop showing their face, fill the basket and walk out. They don't hide the goods anymore. So these cases would be solved, but the police don't have a national database of images like they do with fingerprints and DNA. This is a massive problem. So if you drift from area to area or you commit lots and lots of crimes, you'll never be linked with images like you would be if you committed multiple crimes and left fingerprints or DNA.
Yeah, absolutely right. One final one for you. This is from Scotland. Police officers have been given English classes to improve their reading and writing. I thought at first it was going to be because we were recruiting more people from overseas, but no. Turns out that the people coming into the force in Police Scotland are not very well versed in reading and writing.
Well, it's quite incredible, isn't it? You think there'd be a test before you get in. You know, I remember, I've got to say, my best English teacher was a guy called Kingsley Harrison, who was a staff sergeant in the Special Investigation Branch in the Army. He taught me how to write in a very fluid way. I could write English very well. I went to a grammar school, but I have to say my best teacher was an Army staff sergeant who showed me how to write reports, and then I could write books. But it's amazing that we've got officers who have to be taught basic English. It just shows how bad recruiting is. The police are absolutely desperate. So 30 years ago, people were desperate to get in the police. It was seen as a wonderful career, and now the police are desperate to get people. And it's really sad, and it means the public are going to receive a poor service.
Yeah, it's not good. Great to talk to you. Mike Neville, thank you very much indeed. Retired Scotland Yard Detective Chief Inspector. This from Mike in Newcastle. Regarding the illegal immigrants, when is this government going to realise that we're a small, overcrowded, almost bankrupt nation and simply cannot afford to allow this to continue? And David Wigan says, David in Wigan, I'm spending my bank holiday Monday painting the bathroom and listening to Morning Glory. Of course, absolutely love the show. You are my favourite person on talk. Keep up the good fight. Well, thank you, David in Wigan. Let's get this from Nick.
Will Kingston very correctly said he agrees with putting people into politics who have done well. With Angela Rayner, it's the other way around. She's done very well out of politics. She's done very well living high on the Westminster hog, on the public purse. She's living a lifestyle that most people could only dream of, on the public purse. And what she contributed? She's overseen a regime which has put pubs out of business. Other family businesses have now got to pay inheritance tax. Farmers committing suicide. What a hypocrite, a champagne socialist of the worst order. Have a good day, Mike.
Yeah, Nick, I have to say I agree with every single thing you just said there. Joanna from Salisbury says, on the subject of Gen Z wanting to go back to the office, my daughter got so excited she was going back to the office after COVID, then they got rid of her office, so she's still working from home. Typical, the government made cost savings. Yeah, unbelievable stuff, isn't it? Coming up, Simon Calder joins us. It's bank holiday weekend, of course. We'll find out what the problems are out there. We'll be talking to Kevin O'Sullivan later on as well. It took 8.5 hours to get to Cornwall on Friday. Unbelievable stuff. 7:47.
There is no way to control our border in the way that the British people have rightly asked for many, many times over many years, whilst we stay within the confines of the ECHR. The HRA is the UK Act that enshrines the ECHR into domestic legislation, so that's basically the same. You know, the same principle applies to that. And there are parts of the Refugee Convention that I think are essentially outdated.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 7:49, 10 minutes to 8 coming up. We're here till 10 o'clock, of course. Barry says the picture of Rayner doing the rounds is a disgrace. Hard to believe that she's the Deputy Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, says Barry. And of course, so many of you wanting to get in touch. We will get to as many of your messages as we possibly can. Mike says, Tony, the socialist fools have wrecked our economy. IMF, here we come. Yeah, well, that's the story in the Mail this morning. It was on the Telegraph front page yesterday that there are now economists who worry that Rachel Reeves is going to run out of money so quickly that we'll end up having to go to the IMF, just like Dennis Healey did in 1976. And I can tell you, I remember that. It was not a pleasant experience. Let's talk to Simon Calder, though, who I'm sure has got lots of pleasant experiences to tell us about. He's down at King's Cross for us, travel correspondent, of course, at The Independent. Simon, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. And look, the nation celebrates. There is something to be happy about. The very first train since Saturday on the East Coast main line from here towards Yorkshire, North East England and Scotland departed actually 15 seconds early.
Wow.
A couple of minutes ago. That's going to Hull.
That would suck if you were late for your train, wouldn't it?
Well, yes, but I think they stop you getting on the trains with 2 minutes to go.
They do now, yeah.
So that went well. And
what was the reason why there weren't any other trains running then?
Well, this was planned, okay? So this was planned Network Rail engineering works. They are digitising the East Coast main line. There we are, getting rid of the old signals, because actually a huge problem with an awful lot of delays is that signals break.
Yeah.
And therefore, if you've got digital signals, it's not quite a question of what could possibly go wrong, but at least you haven't got, well, like we saw in the middle of last week, cable theft in Wigan, which brought the whole West Coast main line to a halt.
Yeah.
So that work began on Saturday night on the line between here and Peterborough. They closed it all down. They said, look, actually, bank holiday weekend, the Sunday is going to be fairly quiet anyway. This is probably going to cause minimum harm. Other people, people who are travelling over the bank holiday probably have a bit of flexibility. And lo and behold, it's started again. But elsewhere, problems continue, as you would imagine.
Yes. Yes, I mean, there's always going to be problems on a bank holiday Monday. I mean, Kevin O'Sullivan, rather stupidly in my view, decided to drive to Cornwall on Friday at sort of 11 o'clock in the morning. It took him 8.5 hours to get there, which you kind of know not to do, really. So unless you're having to get back today to get back to work tomorrow, it's probably best to stay where you are, isn't it?
Oh, it definitely is. Absolutely, yeah. So let's run through the various bits of road problem. So we're looking at pictures there of Dover. Actually, Dover, after a couple of really sticky days with delays of up to 2 hours getting onto your ferry, that's now calmed down. But where we've got problems is on the French side. DFDS has just said that you're going to be queuing, even at this time of the morning, half an hour for the border at Dunkirk. We're expecting queues to
too bad, though, is it? Half an hour? Come on. I mean, people live in this sort of society now. They expect everything instantly. I mean, half an hour to get through the Channel border is not bad.
Okay, well, I'm good to hear you championing that. Of course, at Calais and at Dunkirk, you've got to go through the French passport control, have your passport checked and stamped, and then you go through the UK border force, and that's where I'm expecting things to build up later in the day. But here in the UK, if you do successfully make it back, well, you can expect the M20, the M25 to be busy. And yeah, exactly as you say, I mean, they're probably going to catch Kevin on the way back as well. If he
I think he's away for a week or two, so he might be all right.
Oh, okay. Right. So anybody's setting off from Penzance at 11 o'clock this morning, it's going to take them 8.5 hours to get to London. Particularly difficult, the M5 northbound from Exeter going up towards Bristol. That's going to catch a lot of people, I think, out, or rather they're going to be queuing for extra long time. And of course, problems can just pop up anywhere. If you can possibly, the RAC is saying that there are going to be about 2.7 million extra journeys today on top of the normal amount of traffic. If you can postpone your journey till after 7 o'clock, then you are going to miss the worst of the traffic and you should have a fairly smooth ride.
Yeah.
As always, it's the sort of middle of the day, late afternoon is when you're going to see the biggest problems.
Yes, at least the weather's halfway decent, so you're not going to have too much rain or anything, what we can tell. It is going to be hotter than Morocco, though, we're told, by the front page of the Daily Star. Up into the 30s.
Just on that subject, of course, whenever you get lovely bank holiday weather, you immediately get everybody in nearby cities heading for their nearest bit of coast.
Yes.
And that's going to get very, very busy indeed, or indeed the beautiful Lake District. So, stay at home and just keep tuned to talk, I think.
Yes, I think so. I've never understood that, why people suddenly wake up at sort of 10 o'clock in the morning and go, I know, let's go to the beach. And you go, right, OK, then, so you're going to sit in a car for 2 hours as you try and navigate your way down to the beach, and then you're going to stay there for about 5 hours, and you do the same coming home. It seems mad to me. But the heat has given us a weird story this weekend, though, Simon. Let's talk about this. Apparently, British Airways flight was thrown into chaos over in Florence's Amerigo Vespucci Airport. They had to take some passengers off the plane because it was too heavy to take off.
Yes, this happens more often than you might imagine. This was a British Airways flight going from Florence to London City Airport. Now, the thing about Florence Airport is that it's quite high up and it's got a really short runway.
Yeah.
And therefore, there are climatic conditions, the hotter it gets, the thinner the air, the tougher it is to take off, and the longer a runway you need, or the fewer people on board. And apparently the captain said, look, we are literally legally not able to take off from here until some passengers get off. According to a report in the Mail, 32 people were asked to leave the aircraft. In the end, only 20 left the aircraft. They will all be getting, I'm guessing, a couple of £100 in compensation, and they would have been put on other flights, probably actually from Pisa, which is only an hour away. But same things happened to me. I was at Dubai one sunny afternoon, and the captain said, sorry, we're all ready to go, but we've now got to take a ton of cargo off in order to be able to lift off. That story went really, really badly because we flew to Heathrow as normal and landed, and then they wouldn't let us off. And they said, oh, yeah, well, we were supposed to tell the captain not to land at Heathrow because he won't have time to get the passengers and everything off and the new lot on again. So we've sent all of that lot to Gatwick. But for some reason, the message didn't get through. And we sat on the ground for 90 minutes and then flew to Gatwick.
I guess the moral of the story is to go easy on the lunch before you get on the plane, and then you won't be so heavy.
Well, exactly, yeah. But no, there are very, very strict rules on the temperature of the air, the length of the runway, the weight of the plane, and it's possible, if things do get hotter and hotter and hotter, that this will happen some more. But if you are asked to volunteer, it's always nice if you're flexible, just say, OK, I'll do that, and they will shower you with money and also hopefully a nice hotel and some meals and so on.
Well, it's always an opportunity, isn't it, if you've got time? But so few people have time these days. Simon, good to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Are you off anywhere interesting today?
I always like to spend my bank holiday Mondays, particularly the last one of the year before Christmas, in the fine capital, not trying to get anywhere because I know, sadly, because you and I have talked about it many times, that travelling around the nation isn't necessarily going to be easy.
Yes, absolutely right. Good to see you. Simon Calder checking in with us from King's Cross there. So if you don't have to travel today, best thing is not to do it. If you do, just get away as early as you can. And it's already nearly 8 o'clock, so you might have missed the boat on that. Let's get a voice note from Mark.
Morning, Mike. It's Mark in Lancashire. I've just done a search on Grok on X, which is the AI robot on X, to ask them what is Angela Rayner's estimated net worth. They came up with a search with an estimate of around 5 to 6 million. They say that's what most estimates cluster around, saying that money's been made from a salary, which basically is 159,000 now. So given that a few years ago she was council house girl, claiming herself, you know, she takes great pride in that. Where's all that money come from? 5 or 6 million now, 3 houses, and she's just worked in the public sector for a few years on what is a modest salary. Where's her money come from?
Yeah, it's a good question, Mark. I'll have to say I would probably question the veracity of Grok's figure there, because even if you think of her making 150,000 for a few years, which she hasn't actually made, because she's been making less than that as an MP, it's 95 or so. You know, you don't amass 6 million quid if you're making 90,000 a year, even if you're making it for 10 years. So I think the figures are probably not quite right. But it is interesting to ask the question how she's able to get a mortgage, if she has, for 800,000 quid. Because that's a lot more than her salary is. That's all I'm saying. 0344 499 1000 is the number. Coming up in the next hour, we've got Lord Robert Hayward here and loads of other great guests. Isabel Oakeshott joining us later on as well. It's Bank Holiday Monday. We'll see you after the news.
Is it transphobic to say only women have a cervix?
Well, it is something that shouldn't be said. It is not right. A woman is an adult female, and the court has made that absolutely clear. I actually welcome the judgment because I think it gives real clarity. It allows those that have got to draw up guidance to be really clear about what that guidance should say. If you want to fight for Remain, vote Labour. Now, there are some who say we don't need Brexit to work. We need to reverse it. I couldn't disagree more. Day after day, there are new allegations of sleaze, of favours, of privileged access. And it's all very well the Prime Minister saying, well, say now, well, I'm paying for it.
You've decided to repay £6,000 worth of gifts.
Lord Ali is facing an investigation. I wonder how concerned you are that your biggest donor was not fully transparent.
Are you saying you made a mistake?
It was right for me to make those repayments. Thank you. Of course, I wouldn't want Donald Trump round for dinner, but don't underestimate the danger to the world if Trump is re-elected this time around. I'm anti-Trump. I would like to send my warmest congratulations to President Trump on his inauguration as the 47th President of the United States.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, coming up to 3 minutes past 8. It is, of course, Bank Holiday Monday, the 25th of August, and we are here for your delectation. If you're travelling, by all means, keep your eyes and ears tuned to the radio, and indeed, if you're watching it on one of the apps, you can watch us as well, as long as you're not driving the car, obviously, but if you're a passenger, you can be doing that. And you know how to get in touch, 0344 499 1000. Coming up in this hour, Lord Robert Hayward joins us, a Tory peer and pollster, of course. He's going to be telling us about the news on the front page of The Times today, in which a new YouGov poll for The Times has found that 71% of voters believe the Prime Minister is handling the asylum hotel issue badly, including 56% of Labour voters. So not only is he under pressure after that High Court decision last week about Epping and the Bell Hotel, which now has to be shut down, he's in trouble over every single aspect of the government's asylum policy. Yvette Cooper is saying today what she wants to do is speed up the asylum appeal system so that asylum seekers can be deported more quickly. But there's no evidence to suggest that they can be deported more quickly because, of course, what they always tell us and what they have told us up to now is they can only deport people to countries where they've got deals. And at the moment, they've only got to deal with Iraq, and they've only got to deal, as far as I know, with Albania. They haven't got to deal with Afghanistan, which is where an awful lot of asylum seekers have come from. They haven't got to deal with Eritrea, where they've also got a load of asylum seekers. Meanwhile, the clamour for the hotels to be shut down grows. There's been all sorts of demonstrations all the way through the weekend. Up in Norwich there was a big one, in Nuneaton there was one, up in Altrincham, Manchester there was one big one down in London here at the Britannia Hotel in Canary Wharf, of course, and of course the demonstrations continue in other places as well. Very peaceful, no arrests at all. Meanwhile, the Notting Hill Carnival, which is going on this weekend, has had 240 arrests so far, 15 attacks on police officers, and that's before the day really properly begins, because Monday is always the bad day, you'd have to say, at the Notting Hill Carnival. So we'll bring you news on all of that. Meanwhile, we'll get Richard Holden, Shadow Transport Secretary. He'll have something to say, I'm sure, about the fact that economists are now warning that Rachel Reeves may be taking us into so much debt that we'll have to be rescued by the International Monetary Fund. And of course, then there's Angela Rayner. 3 pads Ange. She's got 3 houses now. She's bought one down in Hove, which is quite an expensive part of the world. 800,000 quid she's paid for that. And she's been seen there quite a lot over the past few months, but she'll be spending most of her time away from it, we're told. But it's nice work if you can get it, isn't it? Let's get a voice note from Boz.
Morning, Mike. Yeah, I actually think it's great that Rayner's bought this other place because with the shortages for housing for the migrants, she could give that property up, 3-bedroom on the beach. I mean, you know, they come straight off the boats into a house. They don't even have to go anywhere else. So, yeah, keep up the good work. Nice one.
Yeah, Boz, thank you very much indeed. This is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. Sean in Gloucester says, there's great victory for common sense in Epping. We need more of that. This useless government trying to appeal the case is further proof, if any was needed, where their priorities lie. And it's not us Brits. Instead of scrambling around trying to house these illegals, why not stop them arriving and deport the ones that are already here? We need an election now. Well, I'll tell you what, if there was an election now, it wouldn't be won by Labour because they are right in the deep stuff and the doo-doo. 71% of people basically polled by the Times are saying the Prime Minister is handling the asylum hotel issue badly, and that includes 56% of Labour voters. Let's talk to Robert Hayward, Lord Robert Hayward, who's a peer, Tory peer and pollster, of course. Robert, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
So, bad news for Starmer, this, isn't it? Particularly the sort of the portion of people who are actually Labour voters. 56% of his own party voters think he's not handling it very well.
Yeah, I think this is strikingly bad because the classification of Labour voters under these circumstances will be those people who voted Labour at the last election, which was actually a remarkably small proportion of the population anyway. Yeah, they had a big majority, but that's because of the first-past-the-post system. But such a high proportion of people saying, no, Labour is wrong from within the diminished Labour community is quite striking.
Yeah, it really is. And of course, the trouble is, this is a many-faceted problem for the government, isn't it? Because it's not only about the numbers arriving, which will swell, we're told, again this week because the wind has changed. Last week there wasn't much of a problem. Hardly anybody crossed because there was an easterly wind blowing across the channel and it made it difficult for them to come. But then you've got the problem of what happens when they get here. You've got the problem of the number of people here since 5 years ago when it all kind of started, 173,000, many of whom are still waiting for an appeal process to be heard. You know, the whole thing is a complete mess.
I think it's striking that historically, going back 30, 40 years, the economy has always been the prime issue, whichever party's in government. But at the moment, immigration is at or above the levels of the economy in terms of an issue uppermost in people's minds. So that is an indication of the problems which the government has got. And at the end of the day, as both you and the news bulletin said, you can tackle little bits of it or say you're going to tackle rather than solve it. But at the end of the day, there is no clear deterrent and no clear location that your people are going to be deported to. The word Rwanda comes very strikingly to mind.
Yeah.
because the Labour government at the moment just do not have an end point in their policy. It's lots of, well, we'll tackle things at the edges, but there isn't a clear destination, a clear end point, which will result in a deterrence.
No, exactly right. And I mean, when you look at the polling, generally speaking, for, you know, which way people are likely to vote if there's an election tomorrow, there's still no light for them there either, is there?
No, there isn't. But I always hesitate to discuss an election tomorrow because there isn't going to be one. But it's the message that the polls convey, and whether it's on the specific issue of immigration or on the failure, identification of the failure over the economy or whatever it may happen to be, Labour is facing a massive problem. And it's striking that on this sunny bank holiday at the end of the summer, every news headline in every form of the media seems to be a real problem for the government. So it's not got easier over the summer recess, which normally governments hope it will. And the likelihood is that the headlines are going to continue negative over the next few weeks.
Exactly right. And we're going to talk to Richard Holden, Shadow Transport Secretary, in a moment. What can you tell us about the polls and the message for the Tories? Because Kemi Badenoch did a big interview with the Sunday Times yesterday in which she said, you know, she sees her job as stewarding the Tory party kind of back from the dead, if you like, so that it will be ready for an election in a few years' time.
I think that's a fair analysis of it. That the Tories face enormous problems. They're at a level which is an historic low. There are some limited indications that the Tories' position may be improving, but they are limited. The Tories have got to get themselves back to be a credible alternative, which at the moment they're not. People still are saying they don't like either of the historic big two parties, what one might describe as the legacy parties. They want to hit out by voting either Reform or Greens or any form of Jeremy Corbyn's party, etc. So there is a real difficulty for both big parties because they are at historic lows, and that includes the Tory party.
Yeah, absolutely. Lord Robert Hayward, good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed, Tory peer and pollster. Shelley in Lincoln says, when these protests take place, and they will grow, I can clearly see the police will lose any shred of credibility they might have. Citizens are seeing sides being taken now and heavy-handed policing for very minor, silly incidents. It's shameful. Without fear or favour has become a joke. I think a lot of people would probably agree with that. Mickey Wallington says, everybody wants to get rid of Prince Andrew, so make him governor of a remote island. Yeah, good idea. How about Chagos? They could have him for part of the, you know, 50-odd billion pounds we're giving them for it. Let's talk now, though, to Richard Holden, Shadow Transport Secretary. He's down on College Green for us. Is he not ready yet, did you say? Oh, he's not ready yet. My apologies. We'll come back to him in a moment. Mike, if 71% of people think that two-tier Keir is doing a bad job of handling the migrant crisis, it means that 29% think he's doing well. Beggars belief, doesn't it? Great show as ever. Well, it might not be that. We haven't seen the full poll, so it doesn't necessarily mean that some people think he's doing well. Some people might have no idea. And Hayley says, rather similar to Boz, maybe Rayner can house the illegal asylum seekers now she has 3 homes. Well, you might think so. Let's talk to Richard Holden, Shadow Transport Secretary, who I think is now here on College Green. Richard, very good morning to you.
I am, Mike.
Good to see you.
Nice
Happy
to speak to you. I'm here on a beautiful day here.
Isn't it just? It's a beautiful day, and thank you very much for putting a suit on and going to work on Bank Holiday Monday. I'm sure there are not too many of your colleagues do the same thing. I was just talking to Lord Robert Hayward there, Tory period poll. So the big story this morning that 71% of voters believe the Prime Minister is handling the asylum hotel issue badly, including 56% of his own voters.
Well, I mean, I must say, I just heard your comments there. I think it was one of your listeners or viewers have been getting in touch and saying they were surprised that 29% of people thought he was doing okay on it. I must say, I agree with that. When you're seeing a 50% increase in small boat crossings, when you're seeing all of these issues we're having around migrant hotels, you know, how can anybody believe that Labour's doing a good job? I suppose there are a few people who do believe in open-door migration, and that's why maybe they supported the Labour Party at the last general election, so maybe they think he's doing a good job. Yeah. But nobody I speak to in my constituency or about the country does. They think that actually they can see it in their own communities that Labour are failing on this issue, and they want to see that change as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I mean, we've been fortunate in the last week or so. There haven't been any people crossing because the weather has been unfavourable. There's been winds blowing the wrong way, apparently. But it's likely to restart this week, apparently, as the heat goes up. We're going to get 30 degrees. We're going to get calm waters. We're going to get another probably couple of thousand people coming this week. And the problem seems to me to be that they're not deporting anyone. You know, they could have had the Rwanda plan if they wanted to keep it. They didn't. They don't seem to have an alternative.
Well, that's true. There is no alternative there from the government. You know, just a few weeks ago, my colleagues in Parliament and I were voting to try and disapply the Human Rights Act to immigration cases because so many of these activist lawyers are bunging up the system with millions and billions of pounds of extra costs as we try and get some of these people who are here illegally deported. It's quite clear that that's what people want to see. We should get people deported as quickly as possible. If you come here illegally, you shouldn't be able to stay. That's the entire basis of the Rwanda plan. And even if you come here legally but you commit criminal offences, you should also have to go. I'm sorry, I don't understand why we've been so soft-touch in this country on some of these issues. We are coming forwards as Conservatives with a comprehensive plan on this. We've got one of our top QCs looking at it because we want to make sure that when we do bring something forwards, it's absolutely watertight. Because I think in the past, too often we've seen people coming forwards with ideas which haven't actually been able to bash through some of those activist lawyer legal barriers, and we need to make sure that we can definitely do that.
Yeah, because we read this morning in the Telegraph that Home Office documents show that not only do these asylum hotels have to now continue to take migrants, but they now have been told that they're going to have to house foreign criminals as well, including people who have been convicted of arson.
I mean, it's crackers. Honestly, it's absolutely mad. We need to see, if you've been convicted of criminal offences, you should be deported, right? I don't understand why there's any question around this issue if you are not a British citizen. I mean, imagine coming to the UK on a student visa, being, as you say, you know, convicted of a really serious offence like arson and being allowed to stay. And too often, that's exactly what people are allowed to do at the moment. We've got to have a tough, hardline approach on it. That's why Conservatives want to disapply the Human Rights Act from immigration cases. That's why we're coming forwards with more comprehensive plans for the future. Now, that's why we got to put the Rwanda scheme in place in the first place. One of the first things that Labour did was scrap it, and that's why we're now seeing a Labour government flailing around with illegal migration through the roof. And as you say, you know, as the weather calms in the Channel, you know, more expected in the coming days and weeks as well.
Yeah. What about Angela Rayner's situation? She's again on the front pages this weekend, defending her £800,000 third home hypocrisy, according to the Telegraph. I find it amazing that she's able to afford an £800,000 mortgage, if that's what indeed she's done, to have a flat in Hove as a base, it says, while working in London. Apparently, well, she's got a house in London, which is given to her by the state, doesn't she?
Yeah, so my understanding is she's got somewhere in the constituency. She's got Admiralty House here in central London, and then apparently is purchasing this new property. It does seem like a huge property portfolio, actually, that she's seeming to be able to amass at the moment. And I think, you know, there is, you know, especially with all of these changes to second homes and potential also changes in tax on that coming forwards in the budget as well. You know, I think there's going to be some proper probing questions asked about, you know, where is her primary residence, seeing as she now seems to have 3 of them, and, you know, making sure that actually everything is being done above board. I think that's absolutely crucial, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of people looking into that over the coming days and weeks.
Yeah, well, I mean, her, according to The Sun, literally just breaking news now, her office have apparently, having said that they were not going to refer to any main home or second home, they've apparently confirmed that she pays full council tax in Ashton-under-Lyme and the second home premium on her flat near Brighton. They say that bills for her Admiralty House flat are handled by the Cabinet Office and Westminster Council, as with all ministers. So she's got at the very least 2 homes that she owns herself, according to her own office, which seems not a bad little number if you're an MP. I mean, she's only been a Cabinet Minister for a year. The MP salary is not that big. I mean, I know lots of people will say it's big enough for most people. It's above the national average. But I mean, you're not buying an £800,000 house with a salary like that, are you?
I'm certainly not, Mike. So, I don't want to cast aspersions on where Angela's making all of her extra income. But, maybe she's bought it with a friend or something. I don't know.
Right.
But
she didn't borrow it from Rachel Reeves because she hasn't got any money.
Well, no, and I think Rachel's borrowed all the money she can get her hands on from the international markets as well. And she's going to be coming back with some tax rises, it would appear, later in the year, which, she promised she wouldn't do. But now, every time we hear from Labour, actually, none of them will now guarantee no further tax rises in the autumn budget, which is going to be, I think, after the conference season, is what everybody's got their eyes towards. I was down out with some constituents yesterday, just chatting about, what their fears for the future are, and so many of those small businesses, so many of those sole traders as well, actually, really worried about what is going to be facing them in the budget later this year, with tax rises coming down the tracks. I think there's a lot of uncertainty in the UK economy at the moment. I'm really fearful for jobs, particularly for young people. I want to see us growing as a country, not taking on asylum seekers, who are coming across illegally, and not taxing businesses to death. And sadly, I think at the moment what we're seeing from Labour is exactly that, an open-door immigration policy and a policy on the economy which is really leading to serious hardship up and down the country.
Yeah, I think it really is. Absolutely right. Richard, good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Richard Holden, MP, Shadow Transport Secretary. Hear about this from Pete. He says, I would have thought Kevin O'Sullivan would have flown to Cornwall to enjoy his £40 fish and chips at Rick Stein's. Yeah, well, he is loaded down with money, but he's got the dog, you see, to consider. We'll be talking to him a bit later on. We might ask him about the Prince Andrew story as well. Good morning, Mike. Simon Calder must have the best job in the world today, says Andy in Hexham. He's paid large amounts and lives a life exclusively on holiday to report on what everybody in the universe knows, that attempting to travel anywhere is a waste of time. I'm not sure he's paid a fortune. I don't think he's buying £800,000 homes like Angela Rayner. Gaz in Pontefract says, Mike, a very good morning to you. 12 of us are driving in convoy from West Yorkshire down to Cornwall on Thursday morning for a week's holiday. From prior terrible experience, we've decided we're going to set off around 2 a.m. just to beat the traffic for the brunt of the journey. And this is on a normal weekday, not a bank holiday. We've stayed put and decorated the house this weekend. Cheers. Yeah, very sensible. I mean, nobody in their right mind travels on bank holiday weekend unless you absolutely, really, really, really have to. I know some people do, and I'm sorry for you if you do, because it's not going to be easy getting around. 8:20, coming up next, we're going to talk to the Sun. Ryan Saby's here. We'll ask him about the latest on Angela Rayner.
Nigel's going to end the little boats crossings in 2 weeks. I have about as much faith in him doing that as we all have in Donald Trump having attained peace in 24 hours, which he hasn't done. It reminds me of the guy down the pub who says, I know what to do, we'll take £10 billion and we'll send them all back to where they came from. It's not that simple.
the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 8 to 23, coming up to 8:24. It's Bank Holiday Monday. It's a beautiful day, by the way, so if you are able to enjoy it without actually having to go to work, then well done. Good luck to you. I've got a great series of really important messages to come in. Margaret says this: have we had an update from Yvette Cooper yet? No. Has Starmer addressed this crisis? No. But his obsession with Zelensky means he posts a photo but ignores the British people. Well, this is another thing. He posted that photo, that ghastly, cringe-making photo of him hugging Volodymyr Zelensky, only this time his right hand was kind of inside his jacket. It looks a little bit weird, actually, to be honest. It looked not quite as weird as the first one, where they appeared to be sort of clutching onto each other for dear life. This time, it looks even more intimate, to be honest. But he put it out yesterday because it was International Ukraine Day. And I'm amazed, actually, that Keir Starmer didn't go to Kiev, where there was a big sort of celebration with Volodymyr Zelensky and Mark Carney, who came in from Canada, and a couple of other sort of heads of state from around the world. I'm amazed that maybe he took the advice of somebody who's got a sensible piece of advice for him and said, you know, maybe just don't go to Ukraine this time. You know, while there's a sort of, you know, migrant crisis going on, while there's an economic crisis going on, while there's an NHS crisis going on. We heard this morning, you know, that more and more people are going private for cancer care. That's on the front page of the Daily Telegraph. Record numbers, in fact, an unprecedented 95,885 cancer admissions to private hospitals last year. That's up 30% since 2020. Also, a bit of breaking news for you. Angela Rayner has told The Sun, or her office has told The Sun, basically that her main residence is in the north of England, near Manchester, and her secondary residence now is the place she bought in Hove for a reported £800,000. Ryan Saby's here, Deputy Political Editor at The Sun. Ryan, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
Interesting front page this morning, just before we move on to the politics, all about Prince Andrew, who's now being threatened by a woman from beyond the grave.
Yeah, it seems these troubles just don't disappear and escape from Prince Andrew. He just seems to be haunted by Virginia Giuffre, who obviously died a few months ago. This case has been rumbling on for years and years and years, and as Prince Andrew tries to bring himself back into the royal fold, every single which way he turns, it seems that this is just blocking him, and there's always something else in this never-ending saga. We seem to have paid several £1 million, we understand, in an out-of-court settlement a year or so ago, and he just can't seem to escape it. It seems very, very difficult to, and at the same time, he's got senior royals, whether it's King Charles or Prince William, we hear, that just don't want him back. So he is, his own making. He is stuck in the middle in no man's land.
Yeah, absolutely right. Well, we'll keep, I'm sure, hearing stories about that for the next several months until October rolls around. Matt Goodwin's on page 10 today, telling the Prime Minister he needs to get radical with migrant policy, because it really has reached a crisis point now, hasn't it? I mean, we've got Yvette Cooper not giving us any updates, despite promising to give us an update regularly about the numbers of people detained. I see the Home Office has put out a new deportation video, which we can play you, but it's no different really from the one they put out about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it uses all the same numbers as it did before.
Yeah, I think just going to show
the video now. Basically showed the same 3 guys getting out of the same van with the same 3 blue plastic bags carrying the same belongings, using the same figure of 35,000. When we know from last week that they deported 2,330 people who had come here on small boats, and the rest were all volunteers.
Yeah, and I think what we need to do is that the government needs to get those numbers up. I think you look at the big part of that 35,000. If you dig into those, the vast majority will be foreign national offenders, those who've committed crimes here, who are then sent back. What the government really needs to do, it's abundantly obvious, is get those huge numbers that are coming over in small boats and getting those sent back. And Matt Goodwin, in his piece in The Sun today on page 10, makes it abundantly clear that the government, what they are doing, they're not radical enough. They need to certainly up their game. And what they need to do is leave the European Convention of Human Rights, or at least suspend it, and actually not be bound by judges in Strasbourg about policy when it comes to deporting and getting rid of migrants. That seems to be one of the few ways of actually getting radical enough to actually get to make sure they don't stay in this country.
Yeah, the problem is, of course, that as the Labour Party and the government kept telling us for the last year, you can't deport people to countries with whom you have no agreement. I mean, even David Blunkett today in the Times is saying, you know, time to leave the ECHR, time to leave the UN Convention on Human Rights. You know, he's a former, you know, sort of what you might call titan of the Tony Blair government.
Yeah, that's right. You had obviously the ex-Home Secretary there, David Blunkett, talking about it. Last week, you had current Labour MP Graham Stringer talking about this as well. And it seems like the government, as Matt Goodwin says there in his piece, tinkering around the edges. We had big noises from the government, how they're going to get rid of this tier one system or sort of reform it to try and speed up the process on asylum applications. But is it really going to be enough? Because if you're still part of that European Convention of Human Rights, you're still going to have the lawyers, and you're still going to have the migrants actually fighting their case. Unless you actually leave, there's not very much you can do. You're still going to be held up. Cases are still going to be held up in the courts. So that's why it needs this radical action. And I think there were some sums done over the weekend that by the time we get to the next election, you can expect 180,000 migrants to have crossed the channel in small boats. If you don't have that deterrent, people are just going to come. It's as simple as that. And it's going to be interesting to see as we head towards party conference season. We've got the Reform Conference coming up at the beginning of September. Let's see, obviously, Nigel Farage is going to be making sort of big noises this week on the issue. Kerry Badenoch is probably going to be talking about movement towards leaving the European Convention of Human Rights. It's going to leave Labour in a very, very sticky position if they're still the ones saying, oh, it'll be okay on the night. It's all right, just tinker around the edges. They're going to be left with massive political problems.
And that, of course, leads you back to the problem that they have in general, which is that they have to move a bit to the right to help make them look better in front of the electorate. Every time they do that, it makes them look worse in front of their own party, who then have more backbenchers who want to rebel against everything they do. Yeah,
I think if Sir Keir Starmer wants to get really serious about this, he has to talk to the right, he has to act to the right. And if those people in his party, those people who are supporters of his party, kick off a little bit, he just has to, or in this case, almost just ignore them. Yeah. He has to tackle it head on, and by sort of listening to those, you know, maybe in his parliamentary party who are a little bit queasy about this. He just has to ride roughlead over it. I mean, can he do that? Does he need a vote in the House of Commons to leave the UN Refugee Council, or indeed to leave the ECHR? I think when it comes to overseas conventions, treaties, there is normally some kind of parliamentary sort of mechanism to leave, but ultimately it's up to the Prime Minister whether we sign or whether we leave these treaties. But I think just going through the motions, he'll have to put something before Parliament. Yeah, interesting. That's the thing that he's got a problem with, though, because if he then ignores the backbenchers, they vote against it and he doesn't get it through, and then he's really in stuck. The Sun this morning in the leader page as well, calling for visa sanctions to be imposed on uncooperative nations who are kind of dragging their feet a little bit when it comes to accepting some of these migrants back. You've got Egypt, Lebanon, Guinea and Burkina Faso, according to the Sun, should cooperate. And if they don't, put sanctions on them. Yeah, no, exactly. And going back many, just a few years, I remember Priti Patel, when she was Home Secretary, she was talking about this and acting on this. Several countries who didn't comply with migrant rules and actually signing up to sort of those bilateral deals, or we could send the foreign national offenders, or we could send those coming here on small boats back to their own country. If they don't comply with that, it's very simple. The number of visas that you'll be allocated to people who want to come here legally will be cut. And I think that's the kind of message that you have to send to embassies and other governments around the world, that the harsh reality of it, we have a problem in this country and we have to act, and we have to act fast. Yeah.
One final one for you, Angela Rayner. I'm going to do the letters page in a minute of The Sun, which is all about Angela Rayner. Martina Bett, your colleague at The Sun, had put a story out this morning, just a few moments ago, saying that Angela Rayner's office has admitted that she pays full council tax in her house in Ashton-under-Lyne, and the second home premium on the new flat that we've discovered near Brighton, in Hove, in fact. So she's building up quite a nice little property portfolio there.
Yeah, and I think one of the attacks that the Conservatives and Reform were pushing over the weekend is for her to come clean over her living arrangements, which is her primary residence, because of course she's got that grace and favour property where she lives in central London. And I think there was an issue over how much council tax she could pay. Was it her primary residence? Was it a secondary residence? Because that alters the amount that she actually pays in council tax. But as you say, two properties that, you know, the family home up in the constituency, the new property that she's bought down in Brighton, and the grace and favour issue. I think one of the issues with this, you had one of her sort of deputies in her department, Matthew Pennycook, talking about you know whether people should be sort of buying these second homes, and other issues about how difficult it is to actually get onto the property ladder. It's just not a particularly great look if you are trying to get people onto the property ladder, how difficult it is, how much money people have to save. But you and the optics of you living in three homes, having the option of choosing whether you're staying in your first, second or third property that night, it just doesn't look great.
No, it really doesn't. Ryan, great to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Ryan Sabey there, Deputy Political Editor at The Sun. Let's have a look and see what The Sun letters page is saying.
Letters from The Sun, the page where you tell Britain what to think. For more, visit thesun.co.uk.
Harry Hodge in Aldershot says former Deputy Prime Minister John "Two Jags" Prescott, who died last year, may now have been outdone by the woman currently in that job, Angela Three Pads Rayner. What an absolute disgrace. And one here from Rocky in Somerset. Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner likes to think she understands the struggles of the poor, but she clearly hasn't a clue. Rayner, who also serves as Housing Secretary, now has 3 homes after splashing more than 700,000 quid on a sea view pad near Brighton. She already owns a £650,000 house in Ashton-under-Lyne, Greater Manchester, and enjoys a grace and favour apartment ministerially in Admiralty House, Westminster. The revelation in The Sun about her latest home comes as millions worry about their rent. Very true. Angela Rayner takes the biscuit. She's shameless, says Orla in Belfast. Not a lot of love for Angela Rayner this morning. She may have lost her credentials as the working class hero with 3 homes, all of which are worth a pretty penny, you'd have to say. It's 8:36.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 8:38. Let's get a voice note from Pete on Kevin O'Sullivan.
Kevin O'Sullivan, 8.5 hours to get to Cornwall. Are we sure he didn't stop off at one of them posh restaurants for another 40 quid fish and chips? I mean, let's face it, Rick Steins is down there and he's about that money. That's where he's going, isn't it? No, there's nowhere near to go in the Ivy down in Cornwall, is there?
There he is, bank holiday. 8.5 hours he took last Friday getting down there. In fact, he was so upset by the time he got anywhere near Devon. I think he stopped answering the phone to the office because we kept trying to track him as to where he actually was.
Just a bit pinpoint
just before the end of the show this morning, around about 9:45. And Mike says this message: the fire service is like the police due to wokery. In days past, there were long queues to collect application forms, and I know HR would bin hundreds of forms just for using blue ink. Now vacancies can't be filled. Well, that is the problem. Morning, Mike. On this glorious bank holiday Monday, says Jackie from Stoke-on-Trent. I think Angela Rayner is buying all these houses up so she can start a new portfolio as a landlord, housing all her beloved illegal migrants. She should have had her kayak slashed so she couldn't take up residence in England. Great show. Well, obviously, that would obviously be a joke, wouldn't it? If Angela Rayner does become the next UK Prime Minister, how the hell will foreign dignitaries understand a word she's on about? Even most British people outside of Manchester don't understand her, says Roger. I don't think her accent's that bad, is it? Let's have a word with Julian Jessup. He's an independent economist, because the story that broke over the weekend was one which we've been talking about, Julian, a very good morning to you, for quite some time, and that is that things may get so bad that there might be a bailout necessary from the IMF, just like Dennis Healey back in 1976.
Yeah, I think the IMF angle is a bit of a red herring for a couple of reasons. One is that countries normally only go to the IMF when they need to borrow in foreign currency, and that was the problem in 1976, whereas all our debts are in sterling, so we shouldn't need foreign support to fund that. The second problem, though, is that if we did get an IMF bailout, it would come with such punitive conditions attached. I don't think it would be politically unacceptable. So in particular, they'd want massive cuts in public spending. And frankly, if the government were willing to do that, it should be doing it anyway without being told to do so by the IMF. But I still think there's an important point here, which is that in many ways we are in a similar position to the 1970s, where the public finances are threatening to spiral out of control. The economy is weak, inflation is picking up, interest rates are high, confidence in the markets is low. So even if we're not going to get IMF bailout as such, I still think it's right to make those sorts of comparisons.
Yeah. Well, the bond yields are a lot higher now than they were when Liz Truss was in charge, which some people have said to me in the last week or so. Surely that should be front and centre of every agenda of every news show that's being done. And in some ways, I agree with that. Equally, they're putting up taxes and they put up national insurance, and they've got supposedly record takes coming into government revenue baskets, but it's not enough because they've got more going out than they've got coming in. So it's the old Mike Corber reference, isn't it? Result misery.
Yeah, that's right. I'll start with the bad news, as you say, that the bond market is a real problem at the moment. So that's what determines the cost of most government borrowing. And the interest rates the government is paying are close to sort of multi-decade highs. So that's the problem. It's partly a global phenomenon. Interest rates are high everywhere, but there's a particular problem in the UK as well, that people have lost confidence in this government. That's investors as well as the electorate. Right. Also have a funny situation where the Bank of England is selling government bonds rather than buying them, as some other countries are doing. So that's making things worse as well. Plus, of course, we've got high and rising inflation, which is making it harder for the Bank of England to cut interest rates. So that's the bad news story. If I was trying to be a bit more positive, I think some of those things might change over the next few months. So in September, I think we'll get an interest rate cut from the US central bank, which will help us too. I think the Bank of England will slow the pace at which it's selling government bonds. And in the meantime, rather surprisingly, the economy actually seems to be holding up a bit better than expected, despite the twin shocks we've had already this year of Trump's tariffs and also, of course, the tax increases that kicked in April. So it's not all doom and gloom, but, there's basically no
it is mostly
here. And I think if we do get another tough budget with even more tax increases, then I think that could still tip the UK over the edge.
Yeah, well, it all seems to be sort of sitting very precariously, it seems to me, that one big move of anything could change an awful lot. I mean, there's a story in The Sun today saying British firms have been hit with a surprise US tariff on more than 400 different products, including JCB diggers and Triumph motorbikes. And this is one that's sort of come in from the back door, as it were, because it's all about steel and aluminium and the proceeds of those particular two metals. And it's, goods that are made with aluminium and steel, and again it's kind of slipped through the net, this one, because firms are losing orders after being blindsided because they didn't know this was coming.
Well, you're right to flag that up. I mean, the initial fears at the beginning of the year were that Trump's tariffs would trigger a global trade war and a deep recession. Now, that hasn't happened, but what we're getting is still pretty bad. So the US tariffs are a lot higher now than they were a year ago.
Yeah.
And on top of that, there's all the uncertainty. I mean, Trump, as we know, tends to change his mind every 20 minutes about what's going on. So not only do we have higher tariffs, but also a lot of uncertainty around that. And that's going to continue to hit us hard. I mean, the only consolation there, I suppose, is that some countries in Europe will be hit even harder. So the German economy, the Irish economy, they're both far more vulnerable than we are to tariffs from the US. But those were important markets for us as well. So if they're weak, then we struggle too.
Yeah, absolutely. Julian, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Julian Jessup, independent economist, who thinks it might not be quite Armageddon when it comes to the economy, but it's not far off it, is it? Don't forget the Morning Glory podcast comes out a little bit later on this morning, around about 10:15, 10:30. You can always catch up with the show if you've missed any of it. Let's get a voice note from Jordan.
I've got nothing against Angela Rayner having a cheeky glass of wine on the beach while she's having a break, but my God, that dry rope is absolutely criminal. Camo with fluorescent pink on the inside, absolutely dreadful. And on the traffic front, I'm heading up to Scotland, to Edinburgh. I'm on the A66 currently, and I've basically got the road to myself. Happy times, happy Monday. Jordan from Chesterfield.
Jordan from Chesterfield. Well said, that man. Well, to be honest, people don't work on Mondays, generally speaking, anyway now. So no doubt bank holiday Mondays is double quiet. And I guess if the weather's nice, people will stay where they are later and later and later. So if you are at the coast, that's that dry road thing that he was talking about. Camo on the outside, hot pink on the inside. Yeah, it isn't great, is it? I'm not going to object to what she wears, for heaven's sake, but I am going to object to her buying up as many houses as she's got titles. Because she's not only the Deputy Prime Minister, of course, she's also Secretary of State for Housing and Levelling Up, I think, and Communities. I guess she's living in as many of them as she can. I suppose that's part of the thing. Watching the pictures of our potential Prime Minister looking like a character from the TV show Benidorm makes me shudder, says Steve. I'm working class and worked for a local council for 40 years. I managed to buy one house. Morning, Mike, says Dean in Dagenham. Why doesn't the government announce a new scheme to find housing? Adopt a migrant, where the politicians and civil service staff allow a migrant to reside in a room in their own property at their own cost. I think so. And Rebecca in Shrewsbury, this is good. I work in planning and licensing for a local authority. I can tell you the number of applications for HMOs has risen, but only the authority can issue the licence. The government can't. It needs planning and conditions taken into account. Fire regulations, rubbish, traffic, noise, antisocial behaviour, etc. to name but a few. Neighbours can object and consultation should take place. Your council can stop this. It's a public document to find the ones that got through. That's a very good piece of advice. Thank you for that. And one from Kaz, who says, I caught the end of Chariots of Fire yesterday when the young men were racing along the beach. I said to my partner, it's migrants racing across the beach now. My eyes actually welled up thinking about, albeit an old-fashioned snapshot of our great country of the past. What has happened? Yeah, Kaz, I don't know. I wish I could tell you. We've got loads more like that. We'll keep them coming. Coming up next, though, we're going to look at what's happening in the Sun Sport. We're going to do 90 minutes in 90 seconds. This is Talk. London's police force is completely and utterly wrapped up in dealing with that. So it's a great weekend to be a burglar because you know there's no police anywhere near South London, for example. You don't have to worry about that. If you want to go anywhere near and rob anybody down sort of in North London, that's going to be fine too because they're all at Notting Hill. You know, the whole thing is a complete disaster and they're all terrified of saying this thing is a waste of space, it creates criminality, it encourages people to fight the police and it should be shut down because quite frankly it's not even British.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's coming up to 8:49. We're almost into the final hour of the show already. Richard says, Mike, cheers. The Carnival has outgrown Notting Hill. Why don't we relocate it? And Jan from Newcastle says, the way the Rayner picks, the word you're struggling to use is crass and hypocrite, of course. Well, we have used that word. We'll come back to that, of course, as well. Right now, though, in the wake of what was quite a big sporting weekend, which included Tommy Fleetwood becoming the second English winner of the FedEx Cup in America, winning 10 million quid. Thanks very much indeed. And we've got Emma Raducanu on the front page as well. We're going to talk now to Jordan Davis, senior sports journalist and football reporter at The Sun, because the football was amazing yesterday. 90 minutes in 90 seconds.
90 minutes in 90 seconds. From The Sun.
Morning, Jordan. How you doing?
Good morning, I'm good. How are you?
Good to see you. Bruno on the back of The Sun this morning. He missed a penalty and says he was upset by the referee.
Yeah, it was a strange one. I was there at Craven Cottage and it was a game that Man United really should have won, and it centred around this bizarre penalty that was given by VAR, so it was controversial anyway. And Bruno Fernandes, a very experienced senior international, was somehow put off because as he stepped back to take the penalty, the referee, Chris Kavanagh, walked behind him and just nudged into him. And after the game, Bruno said that he was triggered, but he didn't blame the referee for the bad penalty, but he still kind of claimed it was in his head and he was thinking about it. But again, if you're asking me as an experienced player, someone who's taken hundreds of penalties in his career, to have a slight nudge and then to suddenly use that as a thing of getting in his head, it was all very strange. And he claimed the referee didn't even apologise to him, which again seemed a bit just seemed a bit stroppy, to be honest. And it's just kind of sums up where Manchester United are right now.
It sort of does, yeah. They need to grow up a bit, don't they?
Yeah, they do, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely right. Arsenal have had a bit of a boost. The injuries they thought to Saka and Odegaard not looking as bad.
No, so yeah, it was a really kind of a bit of a downer on a 5-0 win against Leeds over the weekend. Odegaard fell in his shoulder and came off, and then Saka, who has had hamstring injuries in the past, has picked up another hamstring injury. What we're hearing is that they've had their scans, had their tests. It's not as bad as we think. Now, whether that means they'll be available to play in that massive game against Liverpool on Sunday is still to be seen. But Arsenal have signed so many players this summer that really they have no excuses if they are missing, and they should be able to replace them and fill in if that's the case.
And tonight, Liverpool-Newcastle, a bit of extra tension.
Oh, huge tension, yeah. It's a massive game, and it's all centred around a player that isn't playing and hasn't been around for weeks and months, which is Alexander Isak. I mean, it's a real mess of a situation. He's training alone. We had exclusive pictures in The Sun of him doing that. Eddie Howe, the Newcastle manager, hasn't spoken to him for weeks, has claimed it's a lose-lose situation. Liverpool have had one bid rejected, and they're kind of lining up another bid soon. But I'm just kind of happy for Isak that he's not even going to be in the ground, because the tension in that ground tonight is going to be something else, and there's real hatred from the Newcastle fans towards Isak, and Liverpool would obviously love to have him in a red shirt tonight, but the saga just seems to rumble on. And
there's so much drama between those two clubs as well anyway, isn't there? Always.
Oh yeah, there's plenty of bad blood, and this is just added to it. And let's just hope it all simmers down shortly before the window closes on Monday.
Yes, absolutely right, getting closer. Jordan, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Jordan Davis there, senior sports journalist and football reporter at The Sun. That was 90 minutes in 90 seconds.
90 minutes in 90 seconds from The Sun.
Coming up, we've got Isabel Oakeshott in the next hour, and we've got so many more messages to read out to you. We're going to go first, though, to Georgina, who's in London. Georgina, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. Lovely to talk to you.
Good to talk to you. What do you want to say?
I just want to say the British population have lost all confidence in the present government because of their continuous pathological lying.
Yeah.
And the only people who don't seem to realise this, Mike, is the government themselves.
Right.
Purely because they're not listening to the unrest within the population. I mean, the very fact that they're now having to run cap in hand to the IMF is a testament to their incompetent money managing skills. And rather than making essential cuts in growth overspending, we now know that they'll be coming once again to the taxpayer in the autumn budget to bleed us dry. We can't keep giving them carte blanche to put their hands into our wallets, to take money they want to bail them out of their financial predicament. But, brought about by their ridiculous overspending on illegal migration and net zero ideology. And quite frankly, that doesn't work. And an ever-increasing welfare bill. We've seen this coming from the get-go. And it's no surprise to me that Britain is now in the position that we have a Council of the Exchequer, Mike, that can't balance their own pocketbook.
Can't add up.
And when the silent majority start making their presence known, the government needs to stop and take notice, because this is fast becoming a volatile situation. And the discontent of our British public is palpable because of the gross mismanagement of this government's handling of our country. And God forbid we get Angela Rayner, who reminds me of Vicky Pollard, as our next Prime Minister. As that's only going to exacerbate this situation to an even worse catastrophic level.
Listen, very well put, Georgina. Thank you very much indeed. Georgina, I've got nothing left to say to that, really. I mean, she's absolutely right, isn't she? The people are sick to death. I mean, even only today, we've caught Starmer out in his lie about the shoplifting crackdown. When he was in opposition, he said, basically, if they got in, they would be showing no mercy to shoplifters who are now getting away with it under a weak Tory government. We'll be cracking down on making it safer at work. Well, according to the Daily Telegraph this morning, some new figures from the Metropolitan Police, it shows that basically nearly 800 shoplifting offences reported to police go unsolved every single day. And when I tell you the total, you'll fall off your chair. 289,000 in 24-25. It's nearly 290,000 shoplifting offences not even answered to, not even followed up, and with no suspect at all, just closed. Case closed. That's the end. Let's have a word with Anna. Anne, is it Anne? No, it's Anne in Sussex. Hello, Anne.
Hello to you, Mike. I'm listening to so much that I'm just bemused, because this government has no intention of cutting the smashing the boats or cutting the economic migrants.
No.
Because it's all part of their long-term plan for the past 40-odd years. And if anyone wants to look up the Lucas Trust and the 45 goals of communism and tick off what's actually already happened and where we're going. And of course, one of the big plans is to use the media. And when I say the media, it's not anything to do with, programs like yours. It was all what happened before the election, how dire everything was, and how frightened everybody was. And when we left Brexit, well, can I just say, we were fourth in the economic nations. And then the head of the World Economic Forum told the guys around him, smash it, and pushed us down to 8. We were doing okay.
Yeah, totally. And that was obviously designed, wasn't it, to make us look worse than we were?
Of course it is. And they're still working on it. A climate of fear. Talk about climate change. The world's going to end. Everyone's living in fear. And once you've got people frightened, you can do what you like with them.
Yeah, very true. Listen, very good to talk to you, Anne in Sussex. Thank you very much indeed. One of the things that happened since we were last on the air, actually, and I just wanted to mark it because we're talking to Isabel Oakeshott in the next hour about all manner of things compared with Keir Starmer. Lucy Connolly was finally released from prison, if you remember, last week, and she was able to do an interview with Alison Pearson from The Telegraph. This is how some of it went.
To all the people that, jeering that I was sent to prison, think it's a good thing, think it's funny, hope that they broke me while I was in there, but I'm here to tell you that they didn't.
Have you been Keir Starmer's political prisoner?
Absolutely. Different officers do it different ways, but they can really hurt you if they want to, and they decided on that day they were going to really hurt me, and I mean really hurt me.
Interesting stuff. We'll talk some more about that in the next hour of the show. Dave in Bristol says this: Morning Glory is the best breakfast show, especially when enhanced by the erudite wisdom of Rafe Heidel-Mancoux and the common sense of Will Kingston. However, when Will made the prediction of Rayner taking over as Prime Minister, a dark, gloomy and sinister cloud came over me. Looking at the history of the Labour Party, this has been the portent that things were so bad that the incumbent wanted to cut and run. Wilson handed over to Callaghan, who went on to then lose a vote of no confidence. Blair handed over to Brown, who didn't last long. So Will Starmer, constantly under pressure from various various directions, most of them with their firmly hands on his tender parts and hunkering down in Ukraine and other foreign clients where he thinks people respect and like him, but saying nothing about the mounting crisis here under his disastrous premiership cut and run as well. Well, you never know. He might well do. Let's get a voice note from Craig.
Good morning, Mike. This is Craig in Ilkley. So, talking about Ange and her latest property purchase, you know, it is £800,000 and she's managed to put in £100,000 as a deposit. So she's gone to the market trying to get a mortgage on £700,000 of loan. Well, which mortgage provider is likely to give her a 20-year mortgage, as an example? Because by any sensible measure, in 4 years, she's going to be unemployed. So how is she going to service the mortgage when she's not an MP and on the MP salary? It's a very good question. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Craig, that is a brilliant question because, of course, anyone who's trying to get a mortgage now will know how difficult it is and how much more difficult banks have made it than it was just a few years ago. So, yeah, if she's managed to find $700,000 plus money to put to borrow on the basis that she earns around about £125,000 of a salary, I think she's done rather well. Which would tend to ask the question, how has she done rather well? We shall find out in the next hour. Coming up, Isabel Oakeshott with loads more of your calls as well. This is Talk. We've been talking this morning about a new theme park which is going to be built. The Universal Studios apparently going to build in Bedfordshire. We've been asking many of you to give us some ideas for theme parks. Alison in South Wales says in the new theme park at 5 p.m. every day they could have the PIP parade. All the people driving their brand new Motability cars.
Instead of the water rapids, you can have a road you go down that's full of potholes in a car with bad suspension and flat tyres. I don't know why they're bothering building a theme park in this country. They're going right, no one will be able to afford to go to it anyway.
How about the Rachel Reeves ride, says Terry in Birmingham. You go round and round and vanish up your own deficit. It's the HS2 ride. It travels at high speed for 10 feet, where everyone gets off and into the replacement bus ride. Tickets are £50 if bought 5 months in advance, or £1,000 on the day.
There's a strong rumour going around that Rachel Reeves is going to have a kissing booth for this theme park. So what I do, mate, I shove a £5 in a pot and you can go in and fill your boots.
Thank you very much indeed, and very generous of you. One from G, who says fast-track entry to every ride for illegals, plus a free night stay in the Parks Hotel and free food. New theme park bumper cars will have to pay a congestion charge, and the funhouse isn't built yet, despite Angela Rayner's pledge to build houses. And what about Ghost Train doesn't move because the driver's on strike? Have a good day. This is brilliant for the theme park. How about grow your own cannabis farm? Yeah, that's a good one. An Ethiopian safari park narrated by Angela Rayner, says Gary in Durham. How about that? This sums up the Labour Party to me. The one idea they have to improve growth for the economy is to basically have a bloody big fun fair. It's the type of idea primary school children would pitch, given 10 minutes to come up with something. Well, it turns out, Matt, in Royston, that it's not even their idea. But they're now trying to claim it's their idea, even though it was actually the Tories.
They have done brilliantly on breakfast, but you know on Drive you've done brilliantly as well. Downhill slide ride surrounded by ULEZ cameras so that people are fined on exit. Love it. You could have a Birmingham-themed Whack the Rat stall. If you whack the rat, you can have your bin emptied for free. On the Labour theme park, a house of mirrors where they're all boarded up because they can't bear to look themselves in the eye.
I've got a great one for you, mate.
This is for the is this for the Universal theme park run by Labour?
Moat right around the park.
Yeah.
With loads of dinghies. Call it the channel and say.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. Coming up to 3 minutes past 9. It's Bank Holiday Monday, the 25th of August, and it's going to be a scorcher Phew, what scorcher, as we used to say. According to the Daily Star front page, it's going to be hotter than Morocco, which is only going to mean one thing, isn't it? It means that the seas are going to be calm, the migrants are going to be clambering onto the boats over there in just off the coast of Calais, and they'll be arriving in fairly short order, as Keir Starmer likes to say, over the course of the next few hours. Of course, we'll be talking about that, and how the Times this morning says that 71% of the British public think that Keir Starmer is handling the immigration crisis badly. I'm not sure where they found 29% of people who don't think he's handled it badly, but we're willing to believe that. 56% of Labour voters even think he's doing a bad job. Lord Blunkett, former Labour Home Secretary, has now said the government needs to take more radical action to get a grip of the situation. He suggests we suspend the ECHR, the European Convention on Human Rights, and the UN Refugee Convention, so that we can actually throw some people out of the country. Because let's face it, even though they're still coming in, there's 170,000 people who came here, most of whom are still here. The Home Office are boasting that they've got rid of 35,000, but that's the same number they keep repeating since last November. It's only 2,330 boat migrants that have actually been kicked out of the country. And now we're being told that migrant hotels, where there's been massive protests all weekend in all sorts of different places, including down in Kent, up in Norwich, in Altrincham, Manchester, down in London, all sorts of other places as well. Nuneaton, they had a big one. We're being told by the Home Office now that these migrant hotels will not only have to continue to house illegal migrants, but they'll now have to continue to house foreign criminals who might be released on bail, including some people who've committed arson. For heaven's sake, Isabel Oakeshot's here. We'll try and get some sense about all of it from her, our international editor, of course. Let's get a voice note from Laura on Angela Rayner.
Maybe the reason that Angela Rayner has bought a house in Hove is to help the country out and stop the boats. Maybe that's part of her housing remit now. If she sits on her balcony with her binoculars and spots the boats and then pushes a button and somebody goes rushing out to push them all back again. I think that's rather a good thing if that's what she's doing. I somehow doubt it. Have a nice bank holiday Monday, everyone.
Laura, thank you very much indeed for that. I think you're just being funny, aren't you? You're just taking the mickey out of it all. Rayner is Secretary of State for living it up, or revelling up, says Bernie. Yeah, I think that's probably more like it. That's why she's not in Ibiza, or even Ethiopia, where she likes to go from time to time. It's 9 minutes past 9. This is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. Couple of messages for you. Mrs. Balls thinks the answer to the illegal migration issue is to speed up the appeals process, which should suggest that she hasn't got a problem with them coming here in the first place. Well, that's the problem, isn't it? Because at the end of the day, if you say to somebody your appeal process has been denied, or you've lost your appeal and you're now going to be deported, unless you can actually deport them, there's not much point in going through the process at all. Malcolm in Salisbury says, as the migrant hotel issue has put local councils on the spotlight, it suggests we should all have a lot more scrutiny on who represents us at council level. I speak as someone who rarely voted or votes in council elections. I think that's right. We're now beginning to realise how important some councils are, actually, to this whole story. Let's talk to Isabel Oakeshott on this Bank Holiday Monday. Isabel, very good morning to you.
Morning. I'd actually forgotten about that Ethiopia trip that Ange went on, and now you're reminding me. It's just amusing me because didn't she go to like the Ethiopian Stock Exchange or something?
She did.
And, you know, a few months later, now there's rumours that we're actually going to have to go to the IMF for a bailout. You know, it's
It's
the
shocking.
most powerful economy in the world, or maybe we were before they took over.
Yeah, well, I mean, they do seem to have completely slashed and burned everything that was any good about Britain.
Everything.
I mean, we thought the Tories were bad, and they were. But, I mean, this lot have really taken the biscuit, haven't they?
I'm just trying to see the funny side this morning, you know, seeing Ange floating past in a kayak, you know, looking like, well, I mean, it wasn't a great look for our country, was it? When I initially saw it, I genuinely thought from a distance, I was looking at it from very far away, is this a new type of migrant that's coming? You know, new kind of, I don't know, some new migration from Europe, I don't know what it would have been. But one way or another, boats and labour are not a good thing at this point.
No.
And, you know, the idea that the heat is going to go out of the public fury on this issue by speeding up the appeals process is so wrong-headed that it once again begs the question, who is advising this completely ridiculous Prime Minister?
Yeah.
First of all, most people will think, well, I'm quite hardline on this. I would say I actually would get rid of appeals altogether, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
You know, I just don't think that having gone through the process, there should be the right of multiple appeals, as there is at the moment. People are able to appeal many, many times over a period of literally years.
Yeah.
You know, there are cases of 8 or 9 appeals, all on different grounds, that have spanned best part of a decade. That is clearly totally ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because it's gone too far, I'd probably scrap appeals altogether. But if we have to have appeals at all, it isn't going to take the heat out of the debate until we see that the vast majority of appeals are declined.
Yeah.
And my fear is that the way they speed up the appeal system is just nodding everyone through. They've got track record on this.
Yeah, it'll just be, you know, to normalise it all and to just say, oh, we'll just have an amnesty then and they can all come in. What they should do is make it impossible for you to be given any kind of asylum access if you come illegally on a small boat. And then maybe there could be a couple of exceptional cases made, but that would be it. You would not have, you would basically tell everybody, you're not staying, we're going to put you in a detention centre and then we're going to deport you. And then after that, if a couple of you want to raise an issue, then maybe you can. But to do it the other way and to say you can come into the country while you're waiting to see whether we grant you asylum and then never leave, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it just doesn't work at all. And I think it's very significant that David Blunkett has now begun to raise the possibility of actually coming out of ECHR or amending. I don't know specifically what he's suggested, but essentially he is sort of becoming the first one to break rank on the Labour side, the first really very senior figure to publicly acknowledge this is totally unsustainable. You know, I can't see how we can have another year of this, never mind 3 or 4 years of it. And finally, we have a very highly respected former Labour Home Secretary who actually lived through years, in the early Labour years, they had a huge, well, now it seems like a tiny problem by comparison, but they had an asylum backlog problem in the late 90s, which Labour, actually New Labour at that time, did manage to sort of plough their way through. It was nothing compared to what we're dealing with now. But for Lord Blunkett to actually stick his neck out like that, I think is going to mark the beginnings of a breaking down of the party unity on this issue. I believe there was one backbencher that broke ranks on it last week. We're going to see a lot more because these Labour MPs, not least, of course, they care, I hope, about the future of our country and the state of our country, but they are staring down the barrel of losing their seats in short order if this goes on.
Oh, no question at all. Yeah, I mean, under Blair, they were deporting sometimes as many as 45, 50,000 people a year, and they had a much better system then, because I've spoken to immigration lawyers, as I'm sure you have, over the course of the last 2 or 3 years, who said, you know, they had proper immigration courts in those days, they had proper detention centres, and they could take people from a detention centre to a court, back to the detention centre and out of the country. You know, we seem to have lost the ability to do that, and you have to blame the Tories in some ways for that.
Yeah, I mean, well, the fundamental system now is that people aren't detained.
No.
You know, on the contrary, they're actually given hotel accommodation, as people know too well. So, you know, if you do that, then it's completely possible for those migrants to abscond, you know, and we know that they're working on an industrial scale, they're working illegally. And again, I can't actually blame them for trying their luck working illegally, because no one is stopping them. And they're stuck in these hotels, albeit many people in the UK who don't have a nice roof over their heads would like to be in that situation. But, you know, the devil makes work for idle hands. And of course, they're going to look for something to do if they're facing being stuck for maybe up to a year before their claim is processed and then, I'm afraid, almost inevitably allowed.
Well, that's the thing. And somebody pointed out to me today, you know, they were very happy to confirm last week, the Home Office, that we've got something like 32,000 people currently in asylum hotels. And as one of our listeners and viewers pointed out, there's 170,000 of them that have come in since about 2018 in ever-increasing numbers. Does that mean they're all now living in HMOs up and down the country in people's streets? I think it does.
I'm afraid it does, and I think that's another kind of crisis that is going to grow. Just because people aren't kept en masse in what is obviously a hotel doesn't take away the fundamental reasons why so many people in communities are worried about having these undocumented young males in their midst. You know, they are by definition people we know nothing about, and we can't remotely rely on them to understand basic way of life in the UK. There have been a number of high-profile court cases that have confirmed just that. It's not, you know, prejudice to say that I'm afraid some of these people just have no idea how to behave in a country like the UK. There have been cases in which, I'm thinking in particular of one case, a guy came from the Middle East, and his defense barrister, he was accused or found guilty actually of some horrible sex crime against a young girl, and his barrister said, his defense lawyer said, well, you know, he's actually a goat herd or something in the Middle East, and lives a nomadic life and has really basically never come across any young women. I mean, this is what we're importing.
Well, it's the worst story than that the weekend. Do you remember the guy from Afghanistan who was sentenced to time in jail in Scotland? He raped a 15-year-old girl in Scotland. His name is Sadek Nikzad, 29 years old. He travelled 4,000 miles from his native Afghanistan to reach the UK. But he also spent time as a tourist in 3 different European cities on his way. He spent some time in Italy, in Germany and in France. He posted social media images of himself outside the Colosseum in Rome, Cologne's Cathedral, the Eiffel Tower in Paris. And then he came here with really no reason to pretend that he was in any way desperate for accommodation or anything. But we, of course, invited him in, even posted pictures of himself in new fashion outfits that he'd bought. You know, and there seems to be no checking at all of any of these people.
None at all. And you know, sometimes you probably feel, as I do, a bit like a broken record on this issue. You know, we don't want to be talking about this all day, every day. We don't want to be covering endless cases of illegal immigrants that break our laws and treat people appallingly and are totally ungrateful for the generosity of the British taxpayer and harm our children, in particular women and girls. But that is the crisis that faces us every single day. And we have got to keep the pressure on. We've got to keep exposing these stories, because the truth is that the establishment, the kind of all of those with a lot to lose, really don't want this stuff coming out. And I think there's a bit of steam building now, and there has been for some weeks. And I think we're on the cusp of actually, as a result of media power and people power, we are actually on the cusp of being able to make a difference.
Absolutely right. Well, look at what happened in Epping. You know, the local council there, and we had a very prescient comment actually just before I spoke to you. Local councils are quite powerful in all of this, and local councils are probably easier to influence than a Labour government, which is tone deaf, like Keir Starmer sticking their fingers in his ears going, la, 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 I'm not listening. You know, well, if you're the local council, you bloody well are listening, because you've got the power, first of all, to licence the HMOs, but also to do what Epping Council did, which was to take the government to court and actually win the right to empty the hotel of migrants.
Well, it's, you know, local councils are so overlooked as political stories. You know, I must admit, in my time, all my time as a political journalist, I rarely cover stories about how a local council is managing something. And I was actually, you know, when I started out on a local paper, and at that point, you know, what the local council did and said and got right and got wrong was really well covered. But local papers are not nearly as much of a thing anymore. And so the power of the local authority has been quite sort of underestimated in a way. And this is why it's so important what reform is doing in the local authorities that it now controls. Not because, I'm not saying this because I have a vested interest in reform. I do. My partner is a deputy leader, happy to be open about that. But because they are the only party that have said we're going in and we are going to totally open up the books. We're going to look under the bonnet and see what these councils have been spending public money on. And I think that what is brewing there is something of the order of the expenses scandal of MPs. but it's just been completely overlooked. So here's hoping reform delivers on that. You know, they've got a lot of eyes on them, and if they mess it up, then it's going to be difficult for them to win more councils. But I think that in the next few months, people are going to see just how important local authorities are.
Yeah, absolutely right. I'm just going to finish up with a slightly more human story for you, because I wanted to get your view on this. It sort of made me smile. Front page of the Times this morning. Gen Z apparently are getting lonely working from home, and they all want to go back to the office. Isn't that nice?
Goodness sake. I mean, who would have thought it, eh? I mean, you know, when you're young and you're starting out in a job, isn't that like the single most fun thing is being around your colleagues?
Totally.
That's the whole point. You know, when I started off on a local paper, I used to actually be gutted if I was missing a day of work for whatever reason. You know, maybe I had to travel or something, because it was such fun in the office, you know, and you really can make lifelong friends there, and it's the way to learn your trade from people that are older and more experienced. And no wonder. I mean, yeah, it's all right working from home, maybe one day a week or whatever, but I think to be in the office is the best fun.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Absolutely right. Well, let's hope they actually make good on that particular thing. The problem is an awful lot of companies have gone until recently, oh, well, you don't have to worry about coming in that much. You know, maybe when Fridays now in London are completely and utterly deserted when you walk around the streets. And even, you know, last Friday afternoon I was in London unusually, and at sort of 6 o'clock in the evening, I walked past a couple of pubs that were completely empty. There's nobody in them. It was a beautiful day. Yeah, you know, it's a shame.
It's had a big impact on businesses, you know, particularly in parts of the city, Canary Wharf, you know, cafes and restaurants that used to thrive at lunchtime on a Friday, even in the evenings on a Friday, now are really struggling. But of course, for employers, assuming, and it's a big assumption, that they're getting the same level of productivity out of their workers, they've been able to actually save a huge amount on office premises. And you know, owners of office space have obviously had an absolute hammering, because that has fallen in value so much. I think, like all these things, it goes too much the one way, doesn't it? It goes too extreme in one direction, that there will be a correction, and I think we will see a significant amount of returning to the office as people realise it's not what it's cracked up to be, working at home, you know, with a washing machine rumbling and Amazon at your door every 5 minutes.
Exactly right. And two people that you didn't really know you were sharing a flat with, you know, doing things you don't want them to do while you're there. Isabel, good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Isabel Oakeshott, Talks international editor. Let's get Wayne on HMOs.
Morning, Mike. Great show as usual. It's Wayne from Erdington in Birmingham, mate. We have 180 HMO properties in Erdington alone. And them figures are now a year old. So imagine how many we have got now. Ridiculous, mate. Keep up the good fights.
That is extraordinary, isn't it? And I bet you that number is going to grow and grow and grow. But listen, what's interesting is that you can get access to how many of these properties there are in your area. If you ask the local council, they have to tell you. So if you do that, then we'll get a bigger picture and a broader picture of where all these people are. Because I don't think that's the end of the story. Back in the day, says Francis in London, Maggie Thatcher said the problem with socialism is that you eventually run out of other people's money. Exactly right. Best listeners ever, says Nan in Wales. Always listen to Watch Talk Radio. I'm amazed at the amount of people who message in with information and knowledge. How refreshing. Your listeners know their stuff. Keep it up. Yes, they do. Ian says this from sunny Cornwall. No sign of Kevin. Is Rayner arriving on a small boat on the south coast to jump the housing waiting list? Well, hopefully we'll have a sign of Kevin in about half an hour's time. We're going to be talking to him before the end of the show. We'll find out just how awful that trip was on Friday and when he's coming back. Because, of course, he doesn't want to be doing it today because it's Bank Holiday Monday. Coming next, Sophie Ellsworth's here, News Corps Australia's Europe correspondent. Also, Rakib Hassan is going to be telling us about the Notting Hill Carnival, which is still going on, of course, today for one more day. Already 240 arrests, 15 attacks on police officers, multiple seizures of offensive weapons. Just the usual bank holiday in Notting Hill. This is Talk.
when this first started in Epping, is that if they closed that hotel, this was policy collapse. Because it was kind of the lightning rod. This was one hotel and it has now spread. And unfortunately, the government is without a clue. And how they will push forward, as we were just saying that we've got to have to hope that they've got these new centres going, but the amount that they're going to have to build and kind of renovate to get going is nowhere near ready. This is one of the reasons I think that they're really hoping to kind of drag out a legal case. But honestly, I do not know what they're going to do.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 9:25. Coming up, we're here for about another half an hour. We're going to talk to Kevin O'Sullivan, if we can find him down in Cornwall before the end of the show. It is Bank Holiday Monday, of course, and it is August the 25th. I'm delighted to say Sophie Ellsworth's here. Sophie, good to see you. Nice to be joined by you. News Corp Australia's Europe correspondent. You were down at one of the protests in Bournemouth, I think, on Friday night. Let's get a quick voice note before we do that with Lee on Angela Rayner.
Well, mate, it's Lee. I see the working people's champion and current housing secretary, Angela Two Homes, now Three Homes Rayner's back in the news. Maybe she's been down to Brighton a few times. She's looking to rent and there's no hotel rooms spare because they're all full. So she's decided to buy. Let's just hope she don't flip it as a main residence.
Yeah, I've just been looking at a piece actually from The Independent for a little while ago about the number of MPs who actually operate as landlords. And we might have to have a look at that and check it out later in the week. We shall see. Sophie, though, very good morning to you. Angela Rayner's all over the papers this morning in the boat, in the dinghy, trying to make a point. But, I mean, he's right there, isn't he, Lee? There's likely to be no place for anyone. You go to Bournemouth, there's 3 hotels, I think, currently being used by migrants. I think there's about 1,000 migrants currently living in Bournemouth. People have said that the whole nature of the town has changed. Tell us what happened on Friday.
Yeah, so I went down there Friday night to the actual protests and spoke to many people there, Mike.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that tensions are really high. People are angry about this. Now, one of the hotels I was at the front of where they held the protest was the Britannia Hotel. Yeah. This is an awesome location. It's a couple of hundred metres, should I say, from the beachfront. Prime location, and the groups were divided up, the pro-asylum seekers, the anti-asylum seekers. It was very well managed. The police officers there were lovely to speak to, but the people there are irate. And I had a lot of people who wouldn't talk to me, give their names and go on the record because they were worried of the repercussions for their job, their livelihoods. But I can assure you that there are a lot of people going, how on earth is this happening in the UK?
I know. Certainly I was speaking to people who were going to the Epping protests in Essex a couple of weeks back, and many of them just people that I know that live out that way, and they're certainly by no means would be described as yobs or thugs. They're just ordinary members of families who have got kids who are worried about what's going on. Because Jeremy Kyle told me, I mean, he lives not far from Bournemouth. He was down in Sandbanks, a place you might have seen when you were there. Very ritzy part of the world, you know, very expensive properties, and completely full of migrants, basically, on the day. The beach is full of them, you know, the streets full of them, because 1,000 additional young men is a lot. It's a big number, isn't it?
It is a big number, Mike, but what I noticed when I was walking down past a couple of the hotels right near the beachfront is they stick out. I mean, they've got these facades up, they've got these sort of fake barriers out the front, there's security everywhere. You've got a lot of people, they appear to be the migrants that are in the hotels because they're sitting out the front smoking on their smartphones. And it's dirty around the hotels. Now, whether or not it's them, I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying what I saw on the ground. And then when you had the protesters come in, I mean, you could see some of them peering from the hotel windows looking down. For them, it mustn't be a good experience either, that they're seeing that this is causing so much unrest.
Right, and this is the problem that the government have now got, because they're now having to deal with the idea of moving people out of these hotels, but equally, as we're saying, and we're now finding out more and more, that many towns will be placing them in private housing, in what they call HMOs, these houses of multiple occupancy, which also have to be granted licences by the local councils. But there isn't room for them all, you know, because if you consider how many of them are here, there just simply isn't enough housing.
Well,
So what are they
aren't they really, Mike, just shifting the problem to somewhere else? Now, we had this, obviously, policy, Tony Abbott, our former Australian Prime Minister, stopped the boats, and it worked. And I always hear the MPs, such as Nigel Farage, refer back to Tony Abbott's success that he had in Australia, where we stopped this. But I can tell you on the ground there's two people that they're talking to me about. They're talking to me about Keir Starmer and Nigel Farage. Kemi Badenoch is not getting a mention by these protesters. The Conservatives don't even seem on the radar of this issue. It's all about Farage or the lack of action by Sir Keir Starmer.
Yeah, and we got a piece of the Times today saying that 71% of the people of this country think that he's doing a bad job. The only surprise for me was that there was 29% of the people who maybe think he's doing all right, because I don't know where they're coming from. But tell us a bit more about Tony Abbott and how he did it, because how he stopped it was basically to say to anybody who came to Australia was that you will never be allowed to be a citizen of this country. You'll never be able to claim asylum, and we will actually take you on a boat to another island, right?
That's right. So they had offshore processing. They gave people temporary visas, but they weren't allowed to stay. They were turning boats back. This issue was fever pitch in Australia, and he was so successful on it. And there was a lot of criticism about it, but he won in a landslide majority, got into office and said, right, this has got to stop. And he did it successfully. And Labor, our Labor government in Australia, has proven that this is not something they're strong on, similar to here. So often it's referred back to what happened in Australia. We're an island nation. We turned them back. We processed them offshore, and we said we're not having them.
Right.
And
did most of them stay on those islands then, or did they get sent home to wherever they come from?
Both. Yeah. So that they managed to stop this problem. And he had that whole slogan, stop the boats. It was so simple, but it resonated with people.
Well, it does, because it has to work. I mean, Rishi Sunak had the same slogan, but he didn't stop anything. So everybody was like, well, you're not stopping them, are you?
And when they're sailing in, when a boat sails into Australia, it makes headlines. They're like, how are these people sailing into the country, able to just arrive here? Even coming here, Mike, when I moved here, all the paperwork I have to go through, the red tape, which it should be tough to move to this country. But it seems to be, for people who want to come here illegally, they can do it quite easily.
They can. Well, there's now a very tried and proven route. I mean, during COVID, for example, when everybody was banned from travelling, they were still coming. And it was like the only thing that was operating as a travel business was, you know, the migrant boat system. Get on a boat in Calais, come to Britain, and then you get put up in a hotel. And it was then that the hotel business really started booming, because the government at the time, and that was Boris Johnson's government, said for the best part of whoever's coming, we'll put them up in hotels because it'll be safer. Right, and now look where we are.
And some of these contracts, Mike, for these hotels are for several years to go. So they've got these lucrative contracts. One chap who spoke to me in Bournemouth, he said his dad owns a hotel in the township. He wouldn't give me his name. He didn't want to get his dad involved for obvious reasons, but he said his dad, as a hotel owner, is disgusted with what is going on here. So really, what are they going to do about it, Mike? Because this is the point of difference that Reform UK seem to have. They have this over the Labor Party because it feels like Sir Keir Starmer doesn't really want to do something about this.
And he doesn't really want to address it. And he still hasn't ever addressed it, despite the fact that he's got social media messages going out pretty much 4 or 5 times a day. He's never addressed the migrant hotel protests. He's never really addressed anything other than making tough noises about, you know, if you come here illegally, we will detain you. We know that's not true, because 2 weekends ago, the same week he announced that, this guy arrived, a TikTok migrant he was called, on the front page of The Sun. He arrived on Saturday. By Sunday, he was in a hotel at Heathrow. You know, so nobody detained him at all. That's not happening.
What I find remarkable, I heard you talking earlier about the weather. Is it, you know, the fact that it's a nice sunny day, it's beautiful in London today, beautiful across much of the UK. What, they sail in because there's a bit of sunshine, and it depends on the wind.
It depends on the wind, If the wind blows easterly, apparently it's a much tougher place to cross, so they just wait until the weather's with them, the wind is with them, and that's when they come, when you get the big numbers like 800 or 1,000 in a day. you know.
So what should Britons hope for? What, do we have crappy weather here so that this stops? Does it, surely it can come down to something stronger
You would think.
than worrying about what the weather map is going to be for the next week.
I know. And what we should be doing is deporting these people as soon as they land. You know, that's what they should be doing. What the Aussies did and what Abbott did, and just start putting them back on boats and taking them or flying them on planes to get them back to wherever they come from.
Well, they're going to have to do something, Mike, because as we all know, the general election is quite a few years away. But this is where Nigel Farage is capturing those voters who are going, we are fed up to the back teeth of this and we need to take action. And it's just so curious to me, not as a British person, to just see how irrelevant the Conservative Party has become here in the UK.
Yeah.
Reform is getting all the headlines. Farage is getting all the headlines. He was out with the Sun a few weeks ago on a boat. Video, the whole lot. He's out there in the field saying this is not good enough.
Saying this is what's happening.
And that resonates with people because you're seen as a man of the people.
Exactly right. I've just been told Keir Starmer's put out his first tweet of the day. This came 16 minutes ago. He's retweeted a picture of him visiting a school library or a library reasonably recently. He says, I know that growing up today can be tough. We're investing in youth clubs, music and sport, real-world opportunities to help young people build confidence and find their spark. I mean, you think he didn't think there's anything going wrong in the country. You know, 71% of people on the front page of the Times say he's screwing this up. And he hasn't even addressed it.
But these puffy tweets won't get him anywhere. Another issue here from not being British, a couple of nights ago I was in St John's Wood. Bag snatch right in front of me.
Right.
A thief just walked off with the bag.
Yeah.
They caught him. The patrons caught him. They got the bag back. The crime here seems out of control.
Oh, it is. Totally is.
And then he's putting out puffy tweets like that.
Yeah.
That is not going to win votes. People are not stupid.
Yeah.
They can see through this PR tactic. He needs to focus on the real issues that people are concerned about. And as we spoke last week, Mike, he's busy overseas worrying about Ukraine. He's getting involved in what's happening in Israel and Gaza. Come back to the issues here affecting the British public.
Exactly, and fix them. Shall we have a look at the video? Because we actually made fun of it on Plank of the Week because unfortunately he went and asked this little kid to play a song for him, and he played Row, Row, Row Your Boat, which of course is a reference to the migrants. Have a look.
Hello.
So what are you playing? You're playing...
Row your boat.
OK. Shall we have a go? Are you doing that from memory?
Oh, yeah.
So see...
It says to the little girl, are you doing that from memory? Well, of course she is. She hasn't got any music in front of her. You know, it's a pretty stupid question. Anyway.
The irony of row, row, row your boat.
Isn't it great?
And we've got boat issues here.
Yeah.
I mean, that's almost a comedy
gone straight
skit.
over his head.
I don't know what the little girl's parents, if they had any involvement in this or whatever. Who knows? It could just be something that was coincidental.
Just be bad luck.
But honestly, Keir Starmer, he doesn't seem to have that genuine ability in him. He doesn't come across genuine, and that's where I go back to Angela Rayner, who's sitting on the boat vaping. People relate to authentic politicians, whether or not you like her, and you might think she's got all these properties. She comes across a bit more authentic than Keir Starmer, who's putting out this puff day in,
he's
day
just a
out.
magnet for disaster. Everything he touches turns to absolute crap. Let's get a voice note from Adam.
Hi, Mike. It's Adam from Wigan here. Just a quick question. When Angela Rayner was in Ethiopia, why didn't she just nip across the border and get a deal to return migrants from Eritrea? I thought they were next door to each other. Cheers, Mike. Have a good day.
That's a very good point. Yeah, we need a deal with Eritrea because there's loads of them here and they need to go back. We can always ask the question, why did she go to Ethiopia?
It's been an incredible experience coming to Ethiopia. The UK is committed to working with Ethiopia and the UK economy to work with the Ethiopian economy. His aspirations for Ethiopia's future. It was great to visit Ethiopia's stock exchange and learn more about how it's unlocking Ethiopia's potential. We will build on to deliver jobs for Ethiopia and the UK. The UK continues to work with Ethiopia here in the UK and Ethiopia. Ethiopia.
Oh, I love it. I don't think we've had any jobs from Ethiopia yet. Have we? If anybody give us an update, maybe you can find out for us, Sophie.
But again, Mike, how is this relatable to the British public?
I know.
And another thing that was interesting that people spoke to me in Bournemouth about on Friday night was they said you go down the street and there's so many languages from different countries.
Yeah.
We don't understand what many people are saying in these.
Right.
People are not coming into Britain.
No, you don't hear English in a lot of places anymore.
And they're not making themselves part of their community. They're living in silos, and that's the problem.
Yeah.
One of the problems it seems too. I feel like, Mike, this is like bubbling now.
Yeah.
Something is going to erupt.
It will.
And this is going to get worse because, as we saw all across the weekend, there were protests all over the UK.
Yeah.
This problem is not going away.
No, it absolutely isn't. Sophie Osborne, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed. News Corps Australia's Europe correspondent. She was down in Bournemouth last weekend. We'll keep you updated, of course, as these protests go on, as they will continue to go on. Coming next, Rakib Hassan on the Notting Hill Carnival.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 20 minutes to 10. This is, of course, the one place to be, the home of common sense. We're going to talk to Kevin O'Sullivan coming up a little while later on. We're here till another 20 minutes or so. We're going to track him down in Cornwall. We had the Kev tracker on last Friday when he left London. It took 8.5 hours to get there. We'll find out how it's going now that he's there, because the traffic in Cornwall can sometimes be pretty bad. Back in 1979, says this message, I flew BA to Singapore from London Heathrow, jumbo jet, only 30 passengers on board, stopped at Abu Dhabi, Calcutta and Kuala Lumpur. Before landing and takeoff, we were all asked to sit in the back of the plane due to the temperature and the cargo. I remember being anxious in case it was a bad landing. Yeah, I think I would be. I think I'd be getting off the plane if they said, do you mind sitting at the back? No, thanks, man. Brian in Worthing says, morning, Mike. Just to be clear, the weather is doing the job of the border force. Fantastic. And Ben says, regarding Angela Rayner, she might have done a buy-to-let mortgage. She'll only need a 25% deposit and the rent pays the mortgage. Just a thought. Keep up the good work. Well, I'm pretty sure that if you're making some, OK money, which she is, call it 150,000 a year, and you've already got a mortgage on a place in Ashton-under-Lyne, and you want to go and get another mortgage for 700,000. I mean, I'm absolutely staggered that she could even get something like that. Seems a bit, I don't know, unexplainable to me. We're going to speak to Rakib Hassan in a second, Senior Fellow at Policy Exchange. Notting Hill Carnival going on. So far, 240 arrests, 15 assaults on police officers, multiple dozens of arrests for and confiscations of offensive weapons. Let's have a listen to what Met Commander Chairman Brenier, Charmaine Brenier, I should say, tells us how it's going to be.
But we're there to make sure that we tackle serious violence, and obviously there are concerns around crowd safety. Our role there is going to make sure that we intervene for anyone who's coming to commit crime. It's going to be to protect those from serious violence, such as knife crime and violence against women and girls, and also to support the organisers into managing crowd safety. So last year there were 8 stabbings, and unfortunately and tragically 2 people were murdered. That is absolutely at the forefront of our minds as we enter Carnival this year. Our focus remains on tackling serious violence and taking knives off the streets so that we can deliver a safe and secure carnival.
It's good that you want to tackle serious violence and take knives off the street at an event that you put on every year in which people bring knives to it and commit serious violence. Hello, there's something missing there, isn't there? Rakib, very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike. How are you?
Yeah, very good. I had Rafe Heidelman-Q in this morning. He was saying if this was any other event that took place on an annual basis but had to have this money policed to police it and make sure people were safe, and you had to walk everybody through, you know, knife arches and all the rest of it, it just wouldn't go on, would it?
No, absolutely. And I'd almost go as far as saying that Notting Hill Carnival is afforded special protections. If this was a separate event where possibly the main attendees were of a different ethnic or cultural background, then I suspect that the political establishment and indeed our law and order institutions would adopt a different perspective on Notting Hill Carnival.
Yeah, I think there's no question about that. But the police seem absolutely determined to let it go ahead. I mean, there was, I think, more calls than ever this year for it to be moved to Hyde Park. Sadiq Khan, at one point, was under quite a lot of pressure to do that. He then suddenly found another £1 million for extra security.
Well, I think that how it's currently constituted, Notting Hill is not fit for purpose. It's unsustainable. Yeah. I think that there are growing concerns when it comes to the level of criminality and violence which takes place at Notting Hill Carnival. We know that in the build-up to this edition of Notting Hill Carnival, police made in the region of 100 arrests. And within that resulted in 21 people being recalled to prison. There was 11 guns which were seized, along with over 40 knives. So I think that tells you the kind of person, in a way, that the Notting Hill Carnival has the potential to attract.
Yeah. Well, the thing that I found staggering in terms of the stats for it was that the police apparently had 16,500 people on a watch list, and they're running them all through this, you know, facial recognition system. But I mean, if there's 16,500 people that they don't want to have there, you know, that tells you an awful lot, as you say, about the kind of people that want to go there.
No, absolutely. And we saw that yesterday was Family and Children's Day. There was still 140 arrests. Now, 15 of those arrests were for suspicion of assaulting police officers. I think there's 52 for drug-related
offences. This is on
offenses.
Family Day.
And this was a so-called Family Day. And we know that last year, a 32-year-old mother, Sher Maxima, was killed on Family Day in front of her 3-year-old daughter. So I think that the point to make is that I don't want to see Notting Hill Carnival disappear from the British cultural calendar, but the way it's currently constituted, it's not sustainable. No. And I think that significant reforms have to be made in terms of how it's financed, and also the possibility of it being relocated in line with public safety considerations.
Yeah, absolutely right. And you'd have to think that enough is enough. I mean, at what point will they say that, oh, we've only had 2 stabbings, we've only had 2 deaths? You know what I mean? I mean, surely to heavens, if anything bad happens this time, and thankfully so far, you know, not too many people have been badly injured, but we've got the big Monday to go, and Monday's always the day, and I'm told that the real kind of sort of flashpoint is when they switch the music off on Monday night. That's when it all kind of kicks off.
No, absolutely. No. So today is the so-called Adults' Day, which includes the main parade. So I suspect that we'll be seeing numbers which were notably worse than yesterday's numbers from Family and Children's Day. Now, I think that a lot of people talk about how Notting Hill Carnival itself is a tourist attraction, but we mustn't forget that last year we had a Swedish chef, Muslim Netu. He was killed around the vicinity of Notting Hill Carnival, and he was actually in London for business purposes. So I think that we really need to get to grips with the level of violence and criminality which takes place at Notting Hill Carnival.
And also, I think I'm right in saying that his stabbing was in fact not inside the normal confines of of where the Notting Hill Carnival is. You know, it was like outside of the perimeter, if you like. So it was somebody who had been in attendance at the Notting Hill Carnival who killed him outside of it.
Yes, indeed. So that was a brutal physical attack. Yeah. I think that that's an accurate description of it. Now, as I said before, Mike, I don't want to see it wiped off the British cultural calendar, but I think there's very serious questions to ask in terms of how it should be financed, the level of security, and also the level of disruption to local residents as well. We've known that Kingston and Chelsea Council, for example, they put these sort of respite schemes for elderly residents, shipping them off to the coastline just so they can get away from the public disruption within Notting Hill Carnival.
Yeah. Absolutely right. Well, as I say, fingers crossed it doesn't get too terrible tonight, but we'll be reporting on it, I'm sure, tomorrow. Rakib, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Rakib Hassan, Senior Fellow at Policy Exchange. This is the final day of the Notting Hill Carnival, as we say. Notting Hell, as we're calling it. Mike, great show. It's rare to hear someone talk about the threat to the admin sector by AI, says Kevin Shropshire. It's been obvious to me for some time that most admin, technical or front-facing jobs, like most of the educated middle classes, will be wiped out. Doctors, lawyers, accountants, PR project managers, teachers and so on. The same middle classes had nothing to say when manufacturing jobs were wiped out by automation. Yeah, I know. Cliff in Berkshire says, my fear is that Rachel from Accounts goes to the IMF for a bailout, but conditions are imposed for said bailout, i.e. rejoin the EU and adopt the euro. Is it time to pull out of the coalition of the cold sore? We cannot afford a war. I like that, coalition of the cold sore. I don't know. Bill in Cheshire says, never mind a new home. How dumb does it look for a cabinet minister to be pictured on a rubber dinghy in the sea on the south coast? Either a wind-up or Rayner is totally tone deaf. I mean, you'd have to think it's a wind-up. Surely she's not that stupid to do something like that by accident. Bilko says this, Mike, I've had treatment for cancer recently and I've had no communication with my hospital after my last treatment to tell me the outcome, other than they told me they're happy with the condition and see you next year. Great. Let's get a voice note from Tara.
If the UK ends up going cap in hand to the IMF for a bailout, and I'm not even sure the IMF has deep enough pockets to help, I'd welcome any conditions that target the bloated civil service, cut their salaries, pension perks, and reduce the size of the state. Just like Greece had to in 2010, it made a real difference there, and it's long overdue here. Great show as always, and have a good bank holiday.
Tara, thank you very much indeed. A good bank holiday to everybody else. Brian in Westcliff. Mike, why don't Rayner and Reeves have a competition to see who can say economist or Ethiopia the most times in a sentence? Funny that neither really knows anything about either topic. Should we do the economist as well? Why not? It's bank holiday Monday.
Well, I'm an economist. I studied economics. I got a master's in economics from the London School of Economics, and I worked as an economist at the Bank of England.
I still think Angela Rayner wins it, though. I think she said Ethiopia about 15 times. That's only about 10, isn't it? Heaven's sake. Coming next, Kevin O'Sullivan is going to give us the latest on his bank holiday travels. This is Talk.
Breaking news this morning revealed that under the Terrorist Act, 242 people were arrested in the year to June of this year.
Something you can indulge in as to all the people who aren't going to prison because, well, there's no prison spaces.
So this is a Talk exclusive we've been looking at.
I said, you take these cuffs off me and speak to me like a human being rather than a common criminal.
You're just left wondering, do these people who lead us actually hate Britain?
Yeah.
Do they not love our country and everything that we've stood for?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 9:52. I'm Mike Graham with you in force for about the next 7 or 8 minutes. Peter Cardwell coming in for Julie Hartley-Brewer at 10 o'clock. Last week, of course, it was Kevin O'Sullivan, but he's on holiday right now down in Cornwall, where he's going to have a very nice bank holiday Monday because he's not coming back. He took 8.5 hours to get down there on Friday afternoon. Here he is speaking to Peter Cardwell last week.
But basically, it was always moving, but I could have overtaken the cars if I was walking, you know.
Yes.
We were moving at literally about 1 mile an hour. So it has been a difficult journey. I need a holiday after this.
Poor old Kevin. Kevin, very good morning to you. Welcome.
Hello, Mike. All right?
Yeah, you look a lot more relaxed now than you did then.
Well, yeah, it was, as I said to Peter, after that journey, I needed a holiday. It was doing okay till we got just outside of Bristol. I mean, I was racing along. First of all, I had to do a bit with Mark Dolan. Poor old Mark. How's the traffic, mate? So, not bad. I'm doing about 80 miles an hour, actually. Same deal first time I spoke to Ian Collins, and then we hit the wall just outside of Bristol. From then on, it was like a car park.
Yeah, that's the problem. The M5 is always awful, isn't it?
8 3/4 hours in the end.
Yeah.
It was actually a journey.
And how many times did you stop on the way?
Well, once, I think. Yeah, once. So we had to stop and get petrol and also, you know, tend to the dog and
Yes.
all that.
How is Chasbo?
Well, he's all right. The journey for him wasn't too stressful. He just slept in the back.
Yeah.
But
I hope he
for us-
realises. I hope he realises the sacrifices that you've made for him.
No, he doesn't. That's the problem. But you know, I was being billed on Friday as, you know, Britain's angriest man on his furious journey, and you're right. Henrietta and I did have our first row before we'd even got out of Hampstead. But so I was seething and furious. Then we hit the traffic, and I was in a really, really bad mood. And then after about sort of an hour of it, you just sort of get beaten into some sort of stupefied coma. So we're both sort of just sitting there like on and on and on it went. And every time, you know what I mean? That suddenly the traffic kind of thins out and you're suddenly going at sort of some heady speed of 25 miles an hour, and then bang, you hit the wall again.
Yeah.
It was arguably probably the worst journey I've ever made.
Well, the only thing that would have made it worse is when I was coming back up from Sussex last weekend, and as I was going past this stationary line of traffic, which ended up being stuck behind a broken down car, these two cars tried to break out from behind it and both smashed into each other, and I just sailed past them laughing. I was just like, idiots.
Well, yes, but that's always the problem. The only thing that we had going for us on Friday was that, thank God, despite the millions of cars that were everywhere, apparently 3 million extra cars on the road on Friday, nobody on my journey, which was basically the M4 and then the M5, had a crash.
No.
When you get such heavy traffic and then somebody hits somebody else, then it really is the gates of hell. You're in big trouble then.
Yeah.
So we didn't have that, but the sheer weight of traffic was phenomenal.
Well, the good news is you're not coming back today, because we had Simon Calder on today saying it's going to be probably worse today because everybody's going to stay where they are to the last minute because the weather's quite nice. So you probably take 9.5 hours to get back if you were coming back today, but you're there for a while, right?
Yeah, I'm here for a couple of weeks. I need to have a bit of a break from talk. You know, I've been working 5 months flat. You know the way it is, Mike. And look at this. Look, it's like being in the Mediterranean at the moment. Quite how long that's the sea in the background. So quite how long this weather will last.
Well, I can tell you exactly how long it's going to last, because coming tomorrow, Hurricane Erin and the outskirts of it are going to come to the east, to the west coast of Britain. Cornwall holidaymakers have been told that it's going to rain basically all the way through the whole week.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I have been spotting the weather. I'm aware of that, so I'm making the most of it while I can.
Yeah, and a lot of people they've never forgotten about the £40 fish and chips from Rick Steins. They were like, I was surprised. I had a message earlier from somebody who said, I was surprised O'Sullivan didn't just get in a plane and fly to Cornwall to have his £40 fish and chips with Rick Stein.
Well, next time I'll come down by a helicopter. If you go to Rick Stein's place, you sell the helicopter and just about be able to afford a meal. That place, Padstow, I mean, he just owns everything there, and everything you go into that's owned by Rick Stein, costs you an absolute fortune.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy has got it made. He really has.
He has. Just one final word before we talk to Peter Cardwell. I don't know if you've seen the front page of The Sun today. Prince Andrew now being taken revenge from Virginia Giuffre from beyond the grave. She's got a book coming out beyond, after she died earlier this year.
Yeah, you know the thing about Prince Andrew? I mean, yes, this book is obviously going to unleash more pain for Randy Andy. And they'll go, well, the king has, ostracised him and got him away from frontline royal duties. And that's quite right. And then you hear he suddenly hosted him for a week at Balmoral. So they still all look after each other in the end. I think that Prince Andrew should be given some sort of hut in the Highlands, lock it up, and nobody should ever have to clap eyes on him again. He's a disgrace. He's not only a disgrace to the royal family, he's a disgrace to the human race. So to hell with him, and I hope the book really, really does stick it to him.
Yeah. Kevin, I hope you have a great holiday. Thank you very much for talking to us. We'll see you soon. Kevin O'Sullivan there, live from Cornwall, which looks lovely at the moment, but don't worry, there's a hurricane coming in around about, 7 o'clock tomorrow morning, I think. Peter Cardwell, so very good morning to you.
Hello, the adventures of Kevin O'Sullivan.
Never has so much fun been had with one man's holiday.
One man's holiday, exactly.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
We're having a lot more fun than he is, I think.
Yes, I think so. Absolutely right. What are you up to today?
Well, we're talking